Check, check. 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Let's see if that's working. Hopefully that's working. If it's not working, we're all going to be in trouble. All right. So let's go here. Let's go here. Let's tell everybody we are live. Streaming and reviewing and reading all the cluster jewels and their notables. Come join us for live reactions. The only thing I've seen is this first page, so there we go. Come join us for live reactions and drop memes in chat. Also, premature Fs in chat for necromancers, summoners, Lamau. All right, there we go. Hopefully that's all working. All right, let's add all the emoticons. Let's go full boomer mode, right? If you're a boomer, do you use emoticons more? Or do you even call them emoticons? You call them emojis, right? I guess I'm showing that I'm a boomer. I'm a true boomer. I'm showing that I'm a boomer because I'm calling them emoticons. It's quietish. That's what you guys are saying? Okay. It's a little quiet, huh? I'm not sure if there's much that I can do on my end, but we'll see if I can boost it. No, I think we're pretty much boosted. We're about as boosted as we can get. That's another thing that people say, right? Is boosted. Whew! All right. So welcome in chat. Welcome. Hopefully you guys can hear me. If not, I'm going to introduce some of you to a new thing. It's called your volume control, and you might need to turn it up. No, I'm kidding. Don't turn me up too loud, because otherwise then when I scream in anticipation, you're all going to hate me. So, well, you're all going to hate me anyway. So that's fine. That's fair. That's the way how it goes. All right, so a couple of things. First off, I just have to say this as a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. If you are a Patreon supporter, thank you so much. If you're looking behind me, we have a green screen. So, woo! That's very, very exciting for all of us here at the G3 headquarters. So we've been working on it, and we now have a green screen. So we're very, very excited about that. Other than that, I think that's it for like really exciting announcements on our end. So other than that, let's dive right into these cluster jewels and let's start getting into some announcements. Hopefully tomorrow we're going to be doing the same thing. We're going to stream the patch notes. Your voice is really low. We're not lying. I believe you guys aren't lying. I just believe you guys might have something that you can do on your end to improve it, but we'll see. We'll see. No, on my end, it's all turned up. But maybe it's not. Let's find out. No, that's working. That's working. No, that's working. All right. Whew. How is the baby coming along? Baby's coming along healthy, so that's good news. And we'll do a gender reveal at some point. Not this week, but there may be some clues in my league starter about whether or not we're having a boy or a girl. So stay tuned for that later on in the week. Okay, so let's get on with, what the kids say we're all here for, which is, of course, cluster jewels and their notables. So let's go ahead and dive right in, and then we'll interact and we'll have a great time streaming and chatting all together. If I do miss any of your chats, then I'm sorry for that. We will try to get to everybody's questions throughout the night, but we also want to be faithful to the content that we're going to be looking at, which is cluster jewels and their notables. So let's get started. In Path of Exile Delirium, we're introducing cluster jewels, which can be placed in the outermost sockets of your passive tree. These jewels expand your passive tree and provide them powerful new possibilities for your character builds. There are 280 new notables for you to utilize in your builds. I have to pump this up, folks. This is too small for me to read. All right. Is that too big for you guys? Hopefully that's not too big for you guys. That's what she said. Is that too big for you guys? Oh, man. All right. So that's what we're doing, right? Cluster jewels, 280 new notables for you to utilize. Many of these jewels also create more jewel sockets, which means you can branch quite far outside of your tree if you want to heavily invest in these passives. There are 3 sizes of jewels, large, medium, and small, each with different focus. Large jewels may be placed in the outermost passive skill tree sockets and focus on offensive bonuses. Medium jewels can be placed in the outermost passive skill tree sockets or a socket created by a large jewel, and they focus on specific mechanics and utility effects. Small cluster jewels can be placed in sockets created by large or medium jewels and sockets on the outermost parts of the passive tree. Small jewels focus on defenses. Okay, that's interesting. So we've got kind of like an archetype between each of the jewels. Like the size of jewel that drops is basically going to tell you a little bit about the jewel in and of itself. This is an example screenshot, is what we're looking at here, is just an example screenshot. So that's nice. Cluster jewels can be crafted using all of the same methods that you're used to using with other Path of Exile items. Like other jewels, they can have up to 2 prefixes and 2 suffixes. It's worth noting that the number of passive skills added by the jewel and the effect of the small nodes are both enchantments, not implicit mods. This means they cannot be re-rolled with Blessed Orbs and will not be overwritten if you add a corruption exclusive implicit mod to that jewel. Okay, so you can corrupt stuff. You can corrupt these jewels as well. That's kind of interesting. That's good to know. That's fun to know. All right, and they've made these into like a nice list. I like this list. This is just like a nice list with images for everything as well. This presentation-wise, this is really nice. I was actually wondering how on earth they were going to do this with the patch notes coming out tomorrow plus all of this. So this really makes a lot of sense that they're doing it in this way, because this is almost like half the patch notes, or maybe even more than half the patch notes. This is going to be a massive, massive thing to read through. All right. So, Disciple of Kotova. Every second, consume a nearby corpse to recover 5% of life and mana. 10% more damage taken if you haven't consumed a corpse recently. Okay, so this is, what is this? This is the Catawbas Helmet unique, right? There's a unique that does this. Every second, consume a nearby corpse to recover 5% of life and mana. 10% more damage taken if you haven't consumed a corpse recently. Yeah, so this is like a Scold's Bridal build that you do. So you're like constantly walking along and constantly triggering like self-damage, which constantly triggers corpse generation as you walk along. There's a bunch of these builds that are out there, so that's going to be interesting. It's just 5% recovery rate. That's nice. Lone Messenger. You can only have 1 Herald, 50% more effective Herald buffs on you, 100% more damage with hits from Herald skills, 50% more damage over time with Herald skills. Minions from Herald skills deal 25% more damage. Your aura skills are disabled. Okay, so if we go with this looks really good. So if we go with this, don't tell GGG. By the way, if any of you are GGG employees, you are free to leave the chat at any point in time. Feel free to do so. You are under no obligation to stay here and hear about all of the broken things that you guys have come up with. We appreciate you've made broken things, but please leave the chat because we're going to talk about all your broken things. Please don't nerf all of these broken things in between now and patch notes and subsequent release day. So if you only have 1 Herald, and let's pretend it's a Herald of Agony, you get 50% more effective Herald buffs on you, which of course, if you wanted to go with an auto bomber setup, you could do that. You'd only be relying on 1 Herald though, so you wouldn't get the Herald of Thunder plus the Herald of Ice chaining effect. But it does give you 100% more damage with hits from Herald skills, right? So if you've got, let's say, a Herald of Agony that is shooting out skills, that's going to deal damage. Like that's just 100% more damage onto the Herald of Agony, right? Then you get 50% more damage over time with Herald skills, which that seems interesting. That almost feels like a new archetype. Like a lot of Herald skills right now are about essentially bursting immediately, whether that's Herald of Ash and having the overkill explosion, whether that's Herald of Thunder, for instance, and getting procs, or whether that's Herald of Ice and getting chain explosions of freezing. So that's interesting. Minions from Herald skills deal 25% more damage. So that's going to apply, of course, to Herald of Purity and the minion boys that you get with that. But then it's also going to apply for Herald of Agony. And then your aura skills are disabled, which Herald of Agony doesn't care about any of that. Whereas other builds would care about running, let's say, like a Hatred or a Zealotry or a Malevolence or... Yeah. I like Lone Messenger. That's going to be interesting to build around. Okay. Nature's Patience. All right, let's check this out. Gain 2 Grasping Vines each time while stationary. 2% chance to deal double damage per Grasping Vine. 1% less damage taken per Grasping Vine. Up to 10 vines can grasp you, inflicting 8% less movement speed per vine, broken by moving. Okay, that's the ability that the newer monsters over the last year that have come out, that like they send vines all over you and they're essentially hampering your movement. This is making it so that way you're constantly getting those vines while you're stationary, which I believe this has actually been teasered in the past, but I don't think I've made a comment on it. I would just say for this one, for Nature's Pestilence, this is actually really nice because a lot of the times in Path of Exile, we don't have a visual cue on when we're standing still, on when we're actually being stationary, right? We don't necessarily have a visual cue. And you might say, oh, well, Iron, standing still is the visual cue. But sometimes, for instance, there are times where you're using a movement skill and sometimes it counts as being stationary. Sometimes other things moving you discounts you as being stationary. Sometimes it still counts you as being stationary. So, yeah, it's interesting. Hopefully Nature's Patience will actually give us a visual cue, so that way if we just want to have a build where we're just standing in a spot and dealing a whole bunch of additional damage and taking less damage, then that's good. Because it's up at its max, it's 20% more damage, right? No, I'm sorry. It would be 20% chance to double your damage. So what's the conversion rate on that, right? That essentially becomes a 20% more multiplier. Am I doing my math right on that? Yeah. Then you get 1% less damage taken. So you get a defensive buff and you get an offensive buff. Basically, if you're playing a Molten Strike Jug, why not go for Nature's Patience? Like, especially if you're going deep delving and you're just standing still. I mean, if not deep delving, but if you're going moderately deep delving, right? If you're going 600 plus and you're going to be still for any period of time, like the damage is going to help you and you're already tanky as hell. So that's interesting. Okay, Secrets of Suffering. Cannot ignite, chill, freeze, or shock. Critical strikes inflict scorch, brittle, and sap. Yep, we've been over this. This one's been revealed in the past. So this is essentially swapping out the elemental ailments that you normally would do. So if you're new to Path of Exile and you have never seen what these other elements and ailments do, scorch, brittle, and sapped, it's because there haven't been a lot of meta builds that have been built around these particular ailments. They were introduced a while ago, and they really haven't taken off the ground much. They're just not very popular. That being said, this is what they do. So scorched enemies have their elemental resistance lowered by up to 30% based on the fire damage of the hit for 4 seconds. Hits have up to 15% critical strike chance against brittle enemies based on the cold damage of the hit, which is inflicted brittle for 4 seconds. And then sapped enemies deal up to 20% less damage based on the lightning damage of the hit for 4 seconds. So essentially your lightning damage can become this like defensive mechanism for you. Your fire damage can become a damage booster. And your cold damage also can become a damage booster. The problem is that a lot of the time when you're playing a cold build, the reason why you're playing a cold build is because you want to freeze stuff and then shatter it. That's why you want to crit. And so, because you cannot ignite, chill, freeze, or shock, yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if somebody's going to come up with a way that like your minions, or maybe this will just be another way for supports to play. Maybe like you'll have one support that's set up just so that way they're maximizing these like secondary ailments. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. All right. Kineticism. Let's check this out. Attack projectiles always inflict bleeding and maim and knock back enemies. Projectiles cannot pierce, fork, or chain. Bleeding deals double damage over time. Deals physical damage over time. Not double, sorry. Bleeding deals physical damage over time based on the physical damage of the skill. Damage is higher while moving. Maimed enemies have 30% reduced movement speed. So I'm thinking about barrage, right? As I look at kineticism, I'm thinking about barrage. Attack projectiles always inflict bleeding and maim, and they knock enemies back. Now, you can't pierce, fork, or chain, so that's a pretty big bummer. But you're always knocking stuff back and always instantly inflicting bleeding and maim. So I actually wonder, this could be a notable that we could actually see a whole bunch of gladiators, like a whole bunch of duelists using. Like, are we going to see gladiator wand users? Is that what we're going to see this league with kineticism? That's interesting. All right, Veterans Awareness. 10% to all elemental resistances and maximum elemental resistances while affected by a non-vol guard skill. 20% more damage taken if a non-vol guard buff was lost recently. 20% additional physical damage reduction while affected by a non-vol guard skill. Maximum resistances cannot be raised above 90%. Recently, of course, is the last 4 seconds. That seems really good. So you go into a boss zone and you pop your non-vol guard skill. And if you've got Soul of Steel and maybe 1 to 2 other additional maximum resistances, you're already at like what? With this bonus 10, you're already at like 70, 88%. And then if you go into any other specializations and you sacrifice a few things on gear here or there, you're at that cap of 90%. Somebody's going to make just like an unkillable energy shield character that's just going to walk around AFK killing stuff. And they're never... You're never going to lose the buff, right? Because you're going to self-cast it and you're going to self-temp chains. So it'll just be really, really long. That seems to be very, very strong. I don't know. As a defensive buff. That seems to be very, very strong. All right, Hollow Palm Technique. This is the one that we've all gone nuts on over the course of the hype and the countdown to the patch notes and to the league drop. You count as dual wielding while you are unencumbered. 60% more attack speed while you are unencumbered. Adds 14 to 20 added physical attack damage per 10 dexterity while you are unencumbered. And you are unencumbered while you have no equipped gloves, main hand items, or offhand items. If you want to get a body, by the way, that looks like me, just develop the Hollow Palm Technique and do, 101 sit-ups, 101 push-ups, and do a 10-kilometer run every single day. Just be like me. And there you go. You'll be able to roleplay as a monk. You'll have a sweet, sweet body just like me with a balding forehead and a homeless man-looking beard. Okay, Prodigious Defense. 3% chance to block spell damage. 30% increased attack damage while holding a shield. 3% chance to block attack damage. Advanced Guard. Attack skills deal 30% increased damage while holding a shield. Ignore all movement penalties from armor. 5% increased movement speed while holding a shield. So Advanced Guard is like what you want if you're playing an auto bomber. Forget the attack skills deal increased damage. Like 30% increased damage isn't that great, but you're ignoring all movement penalties from grabbing armor, which is way down on the duelist side of the tree, I believe. And you don't have to passive all the way down to that. And then you get 5% increased movement speed while holding a shield. That's just pretty nice. That's just a pretty nice bonus there. Gladiatorial Combat. 2% increased attack damage per 75 armor or evasion rating on shield. Okay. It's an increase. It's not a more. And then you get +1 to crit strike multiplier per 10 maximum energy shield on shield. Okay, wait. Where's my calculator? I gotta go to the calculator, boys. All right. So if you have an energy shield, let's just say 200. Let's just say 200, right? Divide that by 10. That's 20 crit strike multi that just got added onto whatever awesome shield you already have. That's not game breaking, but that's really good. Imagine for a second if you were looking for a shield that just had that, right? I'm sorry, I got to do this. We got to do this. We have to go look for a shield in standard that would have this. Okay, let's just really quick see if we can even find a shield that would do this. So a shield that's got what? 200 energy shield? There's definitely going to be one that's got that. Where is it? Armor filters, 200 energy shield. Minimum. And then what else? We want crit strike multi. And we want it to be at least 20. What am I doing wrong here? I'm doing something wrong. All right, there's 1,000 bajillion of these things here. All right, so let's look. Crit strike multi. I probably put in the wrong search filter, right? Oh, I went explicit. That's why. No, it's just not on there. It's just, what am I doing wrong? Regardless, I'm doing something wrong here. I'm definitely not thinking tonight. Let's go with explicit. Is it global or is it local? Well, it wouldn't be local, right? Because it's on a shield. So it couldn't be local to your shield. Yeah, there's a crit strike multi. It's at the very top, so I didn't miss it. Okay. So let's just say screw it. Let's just go for what are they going for in standard? Well, now is actually the worst time to say what are they going for in standard because everything just migrated over. Okay, so let's look at the most broken shields in the game. 400 ES. There you go. You can get a 400 ES shield for what? An X, 2X, whatever. Prices don't matter because it's standard and everybody just migrated, so not everybody's updated their prices yet. Here's the point. There's 321 of these in the history of Path of Exile that are online. 320 of these shields. If you go out and you get a really good shield that's got a ton of ES on it, at 400 ES, you're talking 40 crit strike multi on your shield. That's just like, it's just bonus. It's just, hey, rare items usually have 6 stats on them. And then if they're, what do you call it? If they are if they're a synthesis item, then they've got an implicit on it, and then it's already got, you know, an implicit that you could craft. But by the way, synthesis isn't in the game anymore, so don't worry about that. So it's already got like a base implicit, and then maybe, you know, it's really super expensive and you double corrupted it for something nice. But now it's got an additional layer of stat that you're basically getting with this. That seems pretty good to me. And there's a lot of builds that want to use shield charge and will use spell damage on shields, even like big time spell damage crit multi shields. So that feels a lot. If 3.9 was the league where the monsters and the bosses got buffed, 3.10 is where the players are getting buffed. That's what's going on here. Strike Leader. Attack skills deal 30% increased damage while holding a shield, 2% chance to block attack damage, 2 to melee range while holding a shield. Yeah, not going to use that. Powerful Ward. 20% chance to gain a power charge when you block, 6% chance to block spell damage while at maximum power charges. Ooh, that's nice for a max block build. Enduring Ward. 20% chance to gain an endurance charge when you block, 6% chance to block attack damage while at maximum endurance charge. Okay, so that's a theme between Powerful Ward and Enduring Ward. I like that. So we've got like the Ward notables. That's nice. Gladiators Fortitude. Attack skills deal 25% increased damage while holding a shield. 5% increased maximum life. Okay, you just get 5% life. So it's a better version of the Scion Life Wheel, which granted, again, everybody's made a big deal over the last couple of weeks about how you have to spend extra points to fill out your tree to come out and grab these extra notables. But the notables have to be good enough for you to want to spend your passive points to travel out there to get them. So I feel like if the notable looks lackluster and it's not worth your time, then it's not worth your time. If it's going to be something that you're already going to get on your tree and you're going to travel to go get the thing that gives you more stats, right? Precise Retaliation. 80% increased critical strike chance if you haven't blocked recently. Plus 40 to critical strike multi if you have blocked recently. What? Okay, so you can just go with a max block build and then just be a crit boy. Okay. If only we had Spectral Shield Throw. Oh, wait, we do. All right, Veteran Defender. 15 to all attributes. 15% elemental resistances while holding a shield. 60% increased defenses from equipped shield. Okay, nice. Iron Breaker. Oh no, it's something that's going to break me. Enemies have -10 to total physical damage reduction against your hits. 35% increased physical damage. Okay, so that's like, it's like physical pen. Yeah, it's physical pen. Although it's not quite as good as elemental pen because physical damage reduction cannot be negative. Whereas elemental damage can be, elemental resistances can go negative, and then it acts as a more multiplier. So that's kind of interesting. All right, deep cuts. 15% chance to impale enemies on hit with attacks. Impales you inflict last one additional hit. Wow! Okay. Is this the exact same wording as the... Why did I not start the stream with Path of Building pulled up? That was just a stupid move on my part. Deep cuts. Is this the exact same wording as Master of Metal on the... Here we go. Let's go here. Go new. All right. Go to Master of Metal. Where are you? Impales you inflict last 2 additional hits. Yeah, that's the same wording. Impales you inflict last 1 additional hit. So this is like a mini ascendancy. Like people take Master of Metal just for that, for the 2 additional hits. So that seems pretty good. Imagine if you get a large notable wheel with like all of these on them, or you get multiples of them, right? That's a lot. Blade Flurry is calling back to me. Master the fundamentals. 10% to all elemental resistances, 35% reduced elemental damage, 35% increased physical damage. Okay, if you're not doing elemental damage, you don't care about that line. So man, gone are the days of Path of Exile, where Path of Exile would give you something in an item, but it would also take something away, like really, really bad. I feel like those design days are gone. Like, this isn't bad. Saying 35% reduced elemental damage, like, if you're building this way and you need 10 to all elemental resistances and you're dealing physical, like, you don't care about elemental damage whatsoever. So it's just that this is just a waste of a line right here. It could just say increased physical damage. I guess they're like, hey, we don't want people like stacking and converting. I don't know. That seems like a waste. It's at least a bit of something. It's at least a bit of something like, oh, here's one particular niche thing that you can't do. Okay, fine. So be it. All right, by the way, while I take a drink, a couple of things. Make sure if you're enjoying the stream that you give a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, you can go ahead and like, subscribe, and ding the bell. And, of course, big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. All right, Force Multiplier. 5% chance to deal double damage, 25% chance, or 25% increased physical damage. So let's just stack a whole bunch of these. So you stack Force Multiplier with the Pestilent movement one, where you can get up to, 20% chance to deal double damage. Like, you're just sitting there using a Paradoxia and just, yeah, physical hits are back. So a year ago in Betrayal, Impale was like the worst possible physical release of a skill. And it was buggy. It didn't have any power behind it. It lacked skills and variety. And now it's like anything that you can do that's physical that can impale will just be fantastic. Rhino Chaos says, will we be able to have multiple of these? Yes, you can. There are multiples of these that you can have. These are not like, a slot that X's out or mutually excludes other slots. These are very strong and very diverse. Okay, Furious Assault. 8% increased attack and cast speed, 25% increased physical damage. Okay, that's just a nice little bonus. Vicious Skewering. Attacks have 10% chance to cause bleeding, 10% chance to impale enemies on hit with attacks, 15% increased effective impales inflicted by hits that also inflict bleeding. Yeah, Gladiators are going to be meta. Gladiator wands. You heard it here first. Maybe you heard it somewhere else. You heard it here first, people. Gladiator wanders. It's going to be a thing. All right. It might not be the thing that people league start with, but people are going to try it. Grim Oath. Gain 10% of physical damage as extra chaos damage. Okay, that's an incredibly expensive mod to get on your weapons that you now don't have to get on your weapons, or you could get it on your weapons and it's just another additional percentage damage as extra chaos. Like, now you could just truly, like, hone and craft your gear so that way it just gives you as much physical damage as possible. Any other, rolls be damned. You don't even need it to be Shaper or Elder. I think it's on Shaper still for it to be physical as extra damage. Now you can just get Grim Oath. This is amazing. Vivav, these are all the small ones, I believe. I believe these are visual indicators, right? I believe these large ones are large notables, right? Yeah, cluster jewels can be crafted using the same methods, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, there's large, where is it? Here we go. Large, medium, and small. So, there you go. I believe that's what we're looking at. I believe that's how they have them divided, as is visually represented. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But yeah, Grim Oath stacking seems incredibly powerful. Battle Hardened. 30% increased evasion rating and armor. 35% increased physical damage. Okay, that's a decent node on your way to something else. Replenishing Presence. 8% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills. What? More aura effect? Auras from your skills grant 0.2% life regenerated per second to you and allies. Okay, that's Commander of Darkness, or I've never played a witch before in my life. Right? No. Commander of Darkness is attack speed and cast speed. Okay, I've never played a witch before in my life. It's the regen. Where's the regen at? Is it over here? Essence Glutton is the regen. For each nearby corpse, it's 0.2% of energy shield per second. Up to 2. Okay. So you go Commander of Darkness. You stack a bunch of auras. You play a Necromancer support. Is what you do. So you run a Necromancer support. This is actually pretty nifty. All right, Master of Command. Sorry, I'm still thinking here. I think that one sounds good. Master of Command. 50% reduced mana reservation of banner skills. Woohoo! Yay! Banners already don't take up that much mana. 15% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills on enemies. All right, I'm gonna need some clarification from GGG here. We've got increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills, but this is increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills on enemies. Did they misalign here, fellas? Was this supposed to be the same thing, or are these genuinely two different stats that work in two different ways? Interesting. First among equals, 10% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills. Non-curse aura skills have 20% increased duration. So your Vol skills just got better. Party play is going to be insane in 3.10. I'm just saying right now, anybody that is playing on their own without the utilization of a party effect, it's okay to do. I do it a lot of the time. That being said, if there was ever a time in PoE to play with other people, it looks like now is the time, my friends. Find yourself a guild, the G3 guild. We're here. We've got lots of slots that hopefully I'm going to be adding to over the next couple of days. I think we're going to go up over 300 members here this league, so I'm very excited for that. Purposeful Harbinger, 10% increased effective auras on you for each Herald affecting you. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh, what to build? Everything is gonna be OP. Everything. Any of you that are asking, oh Iron, what should I league start? Everything is OP with all of these new clusters. Just wherever you league start, make a beeline for the outer reaches of your particular path of building tree. And then once you're there at the outer reaches of your path of building tree, you will find something OP to play, okay? Unless all of this stuff is just like incredibly expensive, incredibly rare, and hard to find and hard to craft. This is really fun build enabling stuff. You and nearby allies have 50% increased critical strike chance. Yeah, that's good. You and nearby allies have plus 15% to critical strike multi. Yeah, that's good. Like, that's good. Like, you can run as an offensive support and you're just like, here, have a bunch of crit multi. Here, have some. Nobody's running elemental overload in party play anyway. Everybody's going crit builds in those situations. Who doesn't want more crit multi? Oh my goodness. And of course, some people are going to be like, now, Iron, remember, 3.9, they buffed minions and monster damage, so this really isn't that good. Yeah, and in 3.9, people were still killing stuff like instantly in party play. This is really fun. Like, this is going to be very, very exciting. For people who are bummed that 3.9 was too difficult and they couldn't progress, there's going to be a lot of options out there for you to progress further. For people who are complaining that the game's not hard enough, go play hardcore. For people who are saying that the game's not hard enough and they don't want to play hardcore, go play solo self-found. For people who say they want to play with their friends and they don't want to do that, go play in a private league. Like, there's lots of different ways that you can impose difficulty in the game. Like, the game is just giving us a bunch of different options here. Okay, Pure Commander. Purity of Elements has 30% increased aura effect. Purity of Fire has 30% increased aura effect. Purity of Ice has 30% increased aura effect. Purity of Lightning has 30% increased aura effect. Okay, that's pretty nice. That's a really, really cheap way to make sure that people are going to get overcapped while you're running as a support. I wonder if any YouTube channels out there have ever covered how to play support. Oh, that's right. We've done that a couple of times. So I'll have to go back through and find those videos and link those in the video description. Okay, Stalwart Commander. Grace has 30% increased effect aura effect. Wow, I can't read. Determination has 30% increased aura effect. Discipline has 30% increased aura effect. What? All right, so first off, nobody plays Determination. It's just a meme, right? Virtually nobody plays Determination. But if you're going to combine Determination with Vol Molten Shell, you've got a reason to take Stalwart Commander. Same thing is true for Grace. Same thing is true for Discipline. Like, those are just, I'm sorry, not the same things being that you can run Vol Molten Shell. That's not what I'm saying. Same thing being that this is just free buffs to Grace and Discipline. So I would think that almost every single individual skill that is getting a buff on here tomorrow during patch notes is going to get nerfed in some way. Like, a whole bunch of skill gems are going to get tweaked in some way. I don't know. That's a lot of power. Anger, Wrath, and Hatred all have 30% increased aura effect. I don't know what to say, guys. Like, it's like Pirate Christmas every day. Like, that's incredible. It's just like, hey, do you guys like damage? Here's some more damage. Here's all these new nodes you can go chase down. Skullbreaker. 8% reduced enemy stun threshold, plus 20 to critical strike multi. Hey, so people that actually want to play with Tidebreaker and stun the whole game. There you go. There it is. The Tidebreaker build is back. Pressure points. Your critical strikes have 5% chance to deal double damage. 40% increased critical strike chance. Nice. Overwhelming Malice. 10% chance to gain Unholy Might for 4 seconds on critical strike. Nice. Which, for those of you who don't know, Unholy Might grants 30% of physical damage as extra chaos damage. That's 30%. So remember how we were saying earlier stacking, what was it? Unholy something? Grim Oath. Remember how we said stacking that was really good? Well, you can just straight up, every time you crit, you got a chance to get Unholy Might on top of all that. Like, there is going to be an Unholy Knight archetype that somebody's going to build, and it's going to be really badass. I'm going to have to try that, actually. Like, it's going to be a sword and board, and it's going to go kill Cirrus. It's going to be good. Magnifier, 10% increased area of effect, 10% increased area damage, and 10 to crit strike multi. Isn't that kind of like the Templar tree? Wait a second. Where is it? Amplify. Area of effect and area damage. Area of effect and area damage, but crit strike multi. I like it. Savage response. 50% to critical strike multiplier if you've taken a savage hit recently. 40% increased critical strike chance. Now, see, that one's kind of interesting because it's kind of tough to take a savage hit, right? You actually don't want to get hit. But it's like this built-in bonus. You get 50 crit strike multi. That's not a small number. A lot of the times, those of you who are unfamiliar with playing like crit builds or with what a lot of players who are going for with crit builds, they're aiming for about 500. Like about 500 is what they're aiming for on crit strike multi. And don't hear what I'm not saying. Don't hear what I'm not saying. There's a lot of people who can go over that, right? With like mirror tier, ridiculous gear. My point is just to say 500 is a good number to hit your crit strike multi at. 400 for a lot of people is a good number to hit for your crit strike multi. So if you're going for 500 and you get 50 just off of this, like there's got to be a way to make sure that you can constantly be getting hit, a savage hit, or internally creating a savage hit for yourself every 4 seconds. Because if you can do that, what is this? Divided by 50, is that 10%? Yeah, it's 10% of your crit strike multi right there. That's not bad. It's actually pretty good. Then you've also got 40% increased critical strike chance. Okay, Eye of the Storm. 20% to damage over time multiplier for Ignite from critical strikes. 20% increased effect of chill you inflict with critical strikes. Okay, sorry, I can't read. 20% increased effect of shock you inflict with critical strikes. 40% increased critical strike chance. So, triple Herald, Elementalist, 3 Dragons Helmet. Right? All right, basics of pain. 20% increased damage, 30% increased critical strike chance. It's nice little flat bonus. Quick getaway. 5% increased attack and cast speed, 5% increased movement speed if you've dealt a critical strike recently, which means everybody who's speed running is going to take this, and 25% increased critical strike chance. This is really good. Everybody who's going to be a speedy boy farmer wants quick getaway. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants quick getaway. Assert dominance. 10% increased area of effect. 15% increased area of effect if you've killed recently, which is last 4 seconds. 10% increased area of effect if you've killed at least 5 enemies recently. I'd like to assert my dominance, if you know what I'm saying. I like that node. Vast power. 20% increased area damage. 3% increased area of effect per power charge. Oh, wow. That's a lot of AoE. Think about this. If you've got what? If you've got 8 power charges, what is that? 24% increased area of effect? What's the area of effect on the tree right now? There's a couple of spots. To be fair, there's a couple of spots to grab area of effect. But what are we talking here? 10%, 10%. So over the course of 3 nodes, you can get 30%. Or if you just invest into power charges, you can get it right there. That actually seems really good. Assassins are going to love that. Vol Stormcall Assassin? I don't know. All right, let's keep looking. If you're new to the channel, by the way, if you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. You can go ahead and ding the bell, like, subscribe, and make sure that you turn on push notifications to be notified about more discussions just like this one. We're streaming all of these notables here tonight and discussing them with our live reactions. And then tomorrow we're going to try to do the same thing with patch notes. Okay, Powerful Assault. 20% increased area damage. Area skills have 10% chance to knock enemies back on hit. Intensity. 10% increased area damage. Skills supported by Intensify have +1 to maximum intensity. All right. So for those of us who don't remember what the heck per intensity point is, because I don't know everything off the top of my head. That's why we have wikis. What is it? Supported skills deal increased area damage per quality. You have less area of effect per intensity, but you have supported area of effect. And then you gain up to a maximum of 4. Supported skills lose intensity. And then you have more area damage. This is a more multiplier, folks. Per intensity, it's 10 to 16% more. So that's another more multiplier buff. We're going to see intensity get a skill gem nerf. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. All right, Titanic Swings. 20% increased area damage while wielding a two-handed melee weapon. That's not area... It is area damage. It's not damage over time. I was like, why would they do that with two-handers? 15% increased area of effect while wielding a two-handed melee weapon. Yeah, I think the stunning build with Tidebreaker is actually going to make a comeback. I think 3.9, it was really tough to stun anything because of the HP thresholds. But I think now the stunning build is going to make a comeback. Okay, Towering Threat. 5% increased maximum life, 10% increased area of effect, 3% increased character size. Oh, nice. Get really, really big. That's actually pretty nice. Ancestral Echo. Uh-oh, here come the Totem Boys. Everybody watch out. Oh, coming through. Totem Boys. Totem Boys, go away. Go away, shoot. Who plays Totems? Who league start Totems? Definitely not me. I'm definitely not league starting Totems. Totems are, no, definitely not me. Okay. 20% increased totem placement speed. That's actually really good because totem placement speed is really, really tough to get. Just take a look at this. Take a look at this. When you type in placement, look at that. That is a veritable famine. That is a wasteland for looking for placement speed. Like it just barely exists. It exists on what? 2 ascendancies? Doesn't even exist on the Scion ascendancy of either of those ascendancies, by the way. 10% increased attack and cast speed if you've summoned a totem recently. Ancestral Research. Increased totem damage. Increased totem placement speed. Wow, that's a lot. Increased totem placement range. Man, if Beckett hears about this stuff, he might actually swap his build over and he might go totems. He's one of my best friends, if not my best friend besides my wife, and he just loves totems. But I don't think he was planning on league starting totems this league. All right, 20% increased totem damage, 30% increased totem duration, 30% increased totem damage if you haven't summoned a totem in the past 2 seconds. So the duration is going to help with that. Are totems also getting a buff for their life so they actually don't just fall over and die instantly? 30% increased totem life. Yeah, there you go. So there's the answer. Totems have 10% additional physical damage reduction. Totems gain 40 to chaos resistance. Nice. Snaring Spirits. 30% increased totem damage. Totems hinder enemies near them when summoned with 25% reduced movement speed. Nice. So you got like this little built-in totem. That's actually pretty nice. So imagine if you've got a Wither totem. You wouldn't care about the increased totem damage. I'm just thinking as a summoner. If you go with a Wither totem, it'd be kind of nice. All right, Sleepless Sentries. 20% increased totem damage, 20% increased totem duration. Attack skills have +1 to maximum number of summoned ballista totems. Okay, somebody's going to come out with the, what is it, the Iron Commander, or what's it called? Somebody's going to come out with the maximum, the 25 different summoned ballista totems build. That's coming back. Somebody's going to do that this league. It'll be great. I'm looking forward to watching it already. Ancestral Guidance. 30% increased effective buffs granted by your active ancestor totems. Okay, so Ancestral Warchief could be coming back. An Ancestral Protector. Totems action speed cannot be modified to below base value. That's nice, so temp chains won't be able to impact them. That's pretty nifty. Ancestral Inspiration. Gain Arcane Surge when you summon a totem. Spells cast by totems deal 25% increased damage. For those of you who don't know, Arcane Surge grants 10% more spell damage, 10% increased cast speed, and 0.5% of maximum mana regenerated per second for 4 seconds. Vital Focus. Okay, we got some channeling skills here. That's why you got the picture of like the dude like this. I'm channeling. Okay, channeling skills deal 30% increased damage, regenerate 1.5% of life per second while channeling. I'd rather it was less damage taken, because then if you're an ES build, you can still have the benefit. I guess life regeneration can be converted into ES regeneration. It'd just be nice if it was like a damage another way to reduce damage. I guess life recovery is nice though, because if you've killed something and then you got hit and you don't have leech on you. Who doesn't have leech on them anymore though? Come on now. Yeah. Rapid Infusion. 50% increased effective infusion. 5% increased movement speed while you have infusion. What's infusion again? You deal more damage of types matching your channeled skills gem tag. 50% increase of infusion. Oh. This is the one that gives you the less damage. That's right. Supported skills deal 20 to 39% more damage. Gain infusion after channeling. Infusion lasts 6 seconds. Infusion grants 10% more damage. I like it. I like it. Unwavering Focus. 40% chance to avoid being stunned while channeling. Okay. That's interesting. Channeling skills deal 25% increased damage. 15% reduced mana cost of channeling skills. That's pretty nice. So, I guess other channeling skills. So, Cyclone is over here, where you're just like, hey, don't worry about it. And every other channeling skill is like, well, you might get stunned. You might not. I guess Cyclone just is in its own little special category. It's its own little special house. Here's a little house. This is where Cyclone lives. All right, Enduring Focus. Channeling skills deal 25% increased damage, 25% chance to gain an endurance charge each second while channeling. So if I play Righteous Fire Juggernaut and I use Scorching Ray as my channeling skill, that's just another way to generate endurance charges. Okay. Interesting. 50% increased critical strike chance while channeling. So, again, Blade Flurry boys are going to be really happy about that. 30% to crit strike multi if you've been channeling for at least 1 second. Blade Flurry boys are going to be really happy about that. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Precise Focus is pretty nice. Stoic Focus. 4% chance to block attack damage while channeling. 4% chance to block spell damage while channeling. Channeling skills deal 25% increased damage. I wonder if somebody's going to do like a Scourge Arrow Gladiator and go max block. I feel like there's a couple of different ways that you could take that and work with that. Hex Breaker. 8% increased attack and cast speed while channeling. Immune to curses while channeling. Okay. I mean, who cares about 8% attack and cast speed? Just become immune to curses while channeling. That's pretty good. So if we ever have a challenge again where we have to kill, what's her name? Deodre, the boss. Deodre, where she's got all the curses and you have to kill her while you're unaffected by curses, just go in there with a channeling skill. Because you're immune to curses while channeling. Right? Easy peasy. Okay, Arcane Adept. 5% increased attack and cast speed while channeling. Channeling skills deal 20% increased damage. Gain Arcane Surge after channeling for 1 second. That would, again, be very nice for a Righteous Fire Juggernaut that's using a Scorching Ray as his channeling skill. Quite nice. Distilled Perfection. 25% increased life recovery from flasks. 25% increased mana recovery from flask. 20% increased flask effect duration. All right, so the Pathfinder's getting some buffs here. Spiked Concoction. Ooh, a spiked... I'll have some of... I'll drink to that. That sounds good to me. Spiked Concoction. Flasks applied to you have 10% increased effect. 5% increased attack and cast speed during any flask effect. During any! It's going to be... Guys, this is going to be really, actually, really, really hard to choose a League starter. Because there's going to be so many good options that we've got. Like, legit. Like, almost every archetype that is presently in the game is getting something. Granted, we haven't gotten to minions and summoners. I'm assuming they are just getting murdered, okay? That's what my assumption is. My assumption is that the summoner is going to go the way of the dodo, and the only people who play summoners are people who want to walk by a museum of history in Path of Exile and observe builds and highlights from 3.8 and 3.9 League. Like, that will be the extent of summoner gameplay. Like, it'll be people historically reenacting what used to be great and OP. It's like when you go to a museum and the tour guide is trying to convince you, no, this really important technological thing was really, really good at the time. And you're just like, yeah, but I can get that for like 25 cents now. It doesn't matter now, right? I feel like that's where summoners are going to go. But this is Pathfinder, and this is amazing. Fasting, 20% increased flask charges gained. 20% increased movement speed while under no flask effect. Mender's Wellspring, 25% increased life recovery from flask. Imagine that on a life of the blood of the Karui, which gives you just a ton of life. Life flask gain 1 charge every 3 seconds. Remove bleeding when you use a life flask. That's fantastic. Forget having to craft bleeding onto your various flasks. Screw it. Go with something different. That essentially makes Blood of the Karui much more valuable, right? Because it is a life flask. What else would it be? What else would it be categorized as? Yeah, it's a Sanctified Life Flask. There you go. Special Reserve. 20% increased damage during any flask effect. Regenerate 2% of life per second during any flask effect. I feel like, again, that's a Righteous Fire thing. It's really is too bad that Righteous Fire doesn't scale like it used to. I know that it scales with spell damage now, but that's interesting. I wonder if we can make that work. Huh. Numbing Elixir. 25% increased life recovery from flask, 25% increased mana recovery from flask, 3% additional physical damage reduction during effect of any life or mana flask. Okay. Vivov, you said Blood of the Karui already gives 100% full heal. Yes, it gives full heal at the end of it, right? But I'm saying, like, while you're using it, it's also going to give you that life, right? While you're using it, what does it give? It's recover full life at the end of the flask, but it gives you what? 2,900 life? So it's going to give you some addition to that. So Numbing Elixir, the way how you work this is you use an Eternal Mana Flask, and so that way you're always using a Mana Flask, right? Because that mana effect is not removed at full mana. And as long as you've pressed that, you get 3% additional physical damage reduction anytime. Like, the entirety of the time. That is time. Anytime you want. You press your Mana Flask, and you're getting 3% Physmit. I like that. That's good. That's very strong. That's very strong. All right, Mob Mentality. 20%. Oh, we got some Warcry stuff. 20% increased Warcry cooldown recovery speed. You and nearby party members gain 5 rage when you Warcry. Okay, so we'll have parties of angry, screaming berserkers running around. Okay, that sounds fun. Cry Wolf. 30% increased Warcry duration. Warcries count as having 10 additional nearby enemies. 30% increased Warcry buff effect. Yep, we saw that one earlier previewed. Haunting Shout. 20% increased Warcry cooldown recovery speed. Enemies taunted by your Warcries are intimidated. Enemies taunted by your Warcries are unnerved, which is the same thing as intimidate, but it's for spell damage. So could we have a Warcrying spell user using Haunting Shout? By the way, whenever anything says take increased damage, that's actually a more multiplier. It's a big deal. Yeah, this is good. The reason why I keep bringing it back to spell-based builds, by the way, is because for anybody that doesn't know, in Path of Exile, attack skills do scale with levels, but spell skills typically scale much harder with levels. So when you are looking at a league starter, it doesn't mean you can't league start as a attack-based build. It just means that your build is going to be slightly more leaning on its itemization in its weapon slot, whereas a spell build that scales more with levels is going to be slightly leaning more on rolling gear and items that give additional levels to your spells, and therefore the more stuff you kill, the more levels you get into your gem, the better it gets by comparison. Of course, that has a cap, whereas attack-based builds, it's very tough to hit the cap because you need perfect weapons and perfect itemization, right? So there's trade-off there, but that's why I keep looking at spell stuff as we're thinking about league starters. Lead by example. 4% additional physical damage reduction if you've Warcried in the past 8 seconds. Okay, that's really good. 4% chance to deal double damage if you've Warcried in the past 8 seconds. That doesn't say deal double attack damage. It's just double damage. And it's an additional 4% physical hit. We're going to have bow using gladiators and wand users who are dual wielding and go for max block gladiator who are shouting and have massive amounts of physical damage mitigation. Imagine Harry Potter dual wielding wands and running screaming around Hogwarts because he's dealing double damage all the time every 8 seconds when he Warcries, and he's also just not taking nearly as much physical damage. He basically has the equivalent of a chess piece on because he's running around screaming in Hogwarts. All right, enough Harry Potter. Provocateur, 40% increased critical strike chance against taunted enemies. 15 to critical strike multi against taunted enemies. 15% increased Warcry buff effect. By the way, if you don't want to activate this via Warcries, you wouldn't have to, because you could just come down here. Where is it? Is it the champion? Enemies taunted by you take 20% increased damage. Enemies taunted by you cannot evade attacks. And then Conquer, 100% chance to taunt on hit. So you just take that, and then boom, you have 15 to crit strike multi. And then you've also got 40% increased crit strike chance after you've hit something. 40% increased crit strike chance. Yeah, seems interesting. Seems good. Warning Call, 20% increased Warcry cooldown recovery speed. 50% increased melee critical strike chance if you've Warcried recently. There's the melee, the explicit melee. You see there's explicit melee stuff. Melee is getting buffed here, people. I'm looking right at you guys. Melee is getting a buff. This is Chris Wilson sending here and saying, hello, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Melee got a buff recently. And then on patch notes tomorrow, they're just going to murder it, right? They're going to be like, oh, that was an accident. We didn't mean to do that. 35% to melee critical strike multi if you've Warcried recently. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. There could actually be some synergy going on here with some legit Warcry builds. Enemies taunted by you take 5% increased damage from Rattling Bellow, and Warcry skills have 40% increased area of effect. That's nice. That's nice. Because this is a multiplier, and you've got a bigger Warcry area of effect. Could Dark Pact make a way back? Could it? Could it? I wonder. The Warcry Berserker that shouts and explodes everything. Okay, Blood Scent. Attacks with axes or swords grant 1 rage on hit no more than once every second. Okay, so in order to get up to your max rage, that's actually really, really bad, right? In order to get up to your max rage, isn't it 50? So you need a minute of hitting stuff? That seems... I'm sorry. Somebody tell me. You guys tell me. That seems bad. Yeah, the max is 50. That doesn't excite me at all. I'm just... Instant reaction. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My volume is up as loud as it can go, people. I'm so sorry. Make sure that you've got your volume turned all the way up. All right, run through. Axe or sword attacks deal 15% increased damage with ailments. 10% increased impale effect. I'm sorry, I almost said ailment effect. 10% chance to impale enemies with on hit with axes or swords. 15% increased physical damage with axes or swords. I don't care about the ailments. Like, this is weird, right? If you're doing the ailments thing, then you're doing elemental damage. If you're doing elemental damage, then you're not necessarily caring about scaling the impale effect. I really don't get that. I don't get why you would put both of them on there. I guess because maybe it's like you're not going to take advantage of both. So this is our new way of saying, hey, here's a bad thing mixed with a good thing. There's way more stuff here for physical than there is for the ailments. That's why the ailments thing is just like, what? What? I guess you could go with like a physical poison impale build. I don't know. I'm scoffing at it. Just because I'm scoffing at it doesn't mean it's bad. Somebody else is going to take it and make an amazing build with it, and then hopefully someday we'll feature it, and I'll be like, hey, remember I said that thing sucked? It doesn't suck. I'm the one who sucks. That thing is great. Okay. Wound aggravation. Axe or sword attacks deal 20% increased damage with ailments, 20% increased physical damage with axes or swords, 10% to physical damage over time multiplier while wielding an axe or sword. Okay, so that's helpful for bleeding. That's pretty good, right? 30% increased damage with maces, scepters, or staves. Gain fortify for 6 seconds on melee hit with a mace, scepter, or staff. That's really good. You just gain fortify. You just get it. Like, you don't have to use a support for it. You don't have to link it into a weird setup. You're not necessarily connected to using leap slam or shield charge. That's good. I feel like that's good. And you gain it for 6 seconds. Now, granted, it's a melee hit. But, okay, so let's say, for instance, that we're playing a Holy Relic Guardian. You already hit every 6 seconds anyway because you need to apply static strikes or your Holy Relics actually fire off their beams, right? So every 6 seconds you're hitting stuff anyway. And now you don't necessarily need to use Fortify as a link in there. I'm not sure what else you'd replace it with. But that's just, it's interesting. It makes it cheaper, right? You don't necessarily need to get a 6 link and then throw Fortify in it. That's interesting. Okay, Expansive Might. Mace, Scepter, or Staff attacks deal 20% increased damage with hits and ailments, while stationary gain 10% increased area of effect every second, up to a maximum of 50%. Increased damage with hits and ailments. So you could build a Scorching Ray character, for instance, that would be an Ignite-based character, and have a much bigger area of effect. Okay. That's interesting. It's interesting. Not saying it's great. Oh! Also, Blade Vortex. By the way, have you guys heard about our Lord and Savior Triple Herald Elementalist Blade Vortex? If you guys didn't play during the summer of what, 2018? I think? Is that when that was? Geez, I'm getting old. 2018, right, was Incursion League. That was when everybody was running that. I mean, everybody ran it for like 3 leagues. It took GGG forever to nerf it. All right, weight advantage. Mace, Scepter, or Staff attacks deal 30% increased damage with hits and ailments, 4% chance to deal double damage while wielding a Mace, Scepter, or Staff, plus 20 to strength. So this is nice because War Staves, I believe, have got a strength requirement. I believe. Right? Yeah, the lowest level is what? 20? Yeah, it's strength and int. So if you're gonna wield one of these staves, you gotta have some strength. So that's kind of nice. All right, wind up. Here we go. So claws and daggers. 15% to crit strike multi with claws or daggers. 10% chance to gain a power charge on non-critical strike with a claw or dagger. So when you don't crit, hey, this is like the assassin. Okay, these are assassin nodes. This is almost like an extension. Guys, I feel like this whole thing is like an extension off of each of the ascendancies. Are you guys not feeling that? I don't know. Are you guys feeling that at all? Like, I feel like the entirety of this, where am I at? We're on what? Wind up? Okay, I'm just highlighting it so that way I'm saving my place. The entirety of this discussion tonight, as we talk about cluster jewels and their notables, I feel like all of it, each and every one, it's like GGG just looked at each and every ascendancy and was like, hey, we're not going to add additional labs for people to run, and we need to rethink about the way how we're doing ascendancies for Path of Exile 2 anyway. So why don't we say, what would it look like for us to expand out each of these ascendancies if they were to go further, and we'll give the players a customizable free way to do that, and it'll expand on the outside of the tree, because that way it'll save us the restructuring of the interior of the tree. I don't know. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. I feel like that's what's going on. Okay, Fan of Blades. Attack skills fire an additional projectile while wielding a claw or dagger. 20% increased projectile attack damage with claws or daggers. Disease Vector. Enemies poisoned by you cannot regenerate life. Oh, that's nice. There's so oftentimes well, in Metamorph, there are monsters who just regen. Super annoying. 10% to damage over time multiplier for poison while wielding a claw or dagger. That seems interesting. Let's take a look at Arcing Shot. Okay, arrows gain critical strike chance as they travel farther. Up to 100% increased critical strike chance. Arrows gain damage as they travel farther, dealing up to 50% increased damage with hits to targets. This is Far Shot without it being Far Shot. This is another bonus to the Far Shot type meta. That's what this is. Hey guys, did you hear 3.8 was, or I'm sorry, 3.9 was the Bow League? Yeah, no, 3.10 is the Bow League. Well, welcome to Bow League. This is actually Bow League. With all of these movement skill bonuses and then projectile bonuses, I would be shocked if we don't see Magic Find parties that are just rushing through tier 16s, blowing stuff up using bow skills. I think. Okay. Tempered Arrowheads. Bow skills have a 10% to damage over time multiplier. Bow skills have 20% increased skill effect duration. 10% increased duration of ailments inflicted while wielding a bow. So Poison Scourge Arrow, right? Or Toxic Rain. Yeah, that's actually what I should be thinking, right? Toxic Rain as a starter. Toxic Rain. Yeah, modifiers to projectile damage apply to this skill's damage over time effect. Yeah. Yeah, this seems good. Bow skills have 25% increased area of effect. Okay, so I would like to officially say at this point in time of the stream, the problem that I have with 3.10 is not any of these notables. It's going to be the amount of time that I have to play. Please, can there be more time for me to play? Please, am I going to get a chance to play all the builds that I want to try and play? All of these look really good. Okay, what are these? These are the Wanders. Enemies killed by your wand hits have a 10% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their life as chaos damage. Am I reading this right? Oh my goodness. Like, oh my goodness. What? Like, there's no commentary for that. I'm sorry. There's no commentary for that. Play wands. Watch everything explode. Corpse destruction effects. Really expensive stuff that you need to roll using Shaper bases, Elder bases, using Conqueror bases, using Awakener orbs. Nah. I'll just use a wand that I found off of the Twilight Stream. goodness. It's their life as chaos damage, people. It's their life. Oh my goodness. Obliteration, PoE. Oh, I don't want oblation. Obliteration wand. Can somebody help me out here? I can't type. Obliteration wand. Alright. Okay. So, Obliteration wand is a unique in Path of Exile that many players build around and enjoy playing with. It reads like this, the special line on Obliteration wand. Enemies you kill have a 20% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage. Enemies killed by your wand hits have a 10% chance to explode. So we're talking about a 15% difference here, mind you. 15% difference here. This is a passive notable that you could potentially get multiple of. And this applies for every single wand. You're not restricted to a unique wand with its unique rules and its unique crafting limitations because it's a unique. You can get this on a rare that has ridiculous amounts of damage. Like, let's say, physical damage that you're then going to get 10% of that physical damage as extra chaos damage. This allows every single wand in the game to essentially cosplay like you're an obliteration wand, but you don't need to have the restrictions of the obliteration wand. Like, you can just go out and get yourself a ridiculously strong physical wand, and boom, away you go. Like, with pack density in maps, you can even white maps. We're not talking like double rolled Beyonders maps here with massive amounts of magic find and party player like added limitations to it or added monster density to it. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about level 1, tier 1 beach map. Every single pack that you bump into is going to have like 10 monsters in it. Okay? That one of them is going to explode, dealing a quarter of their life as chaos damage. One of them is. That's ridiculous. Like, if I'm being hyperbolic, somebody get me away from the cliff and help me out. I don't think I am. Where is it? Yeah, Void Beacon. Nearby enemies have minus 20 to chaos resistance. And then they explode, dealing their chaos damage. And then where's the other one? Malediction. When you kill an enemy, for each curse on that enemy, gain 8% of non-chaos damage as extra chaos damage. That's not it. Profane Bloom. There it is. Your curses can apply to hexproof enemies, and cursed enemies you or minions kill have 25% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their life as minion damage. Like, you're just going to kill everything, and everything's going to explode all the time. I don't see how that's not like one of the stronger ones that we've read tonight. That seems really good for clear. Not necessarily great for bossing. Like, again, that's really good. That's really good. All right, Opportunistic Fusillade. I can't ever say this. Auto TTS. Where's my TTS reader? Fusillade. Where is this? Fusillade. How do you say this word? It is Fusillade, right?
Fusillade.
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 Fusillade. Okay. So, Opportunistic Fusillade. 50% increased critical strike chance to with wands. 35% increased damage with wands if you've dealt a critical strike recently. Oh boy. Okay. I don't know how anybody... Good luck. I'm just going to say this. Yo, good luck playing Wanders this league because they're going to be meta. I'm pretty sure we called that a while ago. I'm not looking to pat myself on the back, but I thought we said a lot. I remember we said Wanders are probably going to be really, really strong this league. That wasn't due to any other like intuition. I didn't know anything about GGG. I just thought, hey, Wanders haven't seen some love in a while, and that might be next up on the rotation to get buffed. They didn't have to rework them. They just added them on with these amazing new passive nodes. Storm's Hand. Gain 10% of wand physical damage as extra lightning damage. Really good. 25% of wand physical damage converted to lightning damage. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so a lot of the wand skills that we've already seen for the league are already lightning based or physical based, so that'll be interesting. So I wonder if Divine Ire users are going to use that. Shout out to anybody in chat that's a Divine Ire user. Can you tell me if this is going to be just ridiculous and you're going to go for it? Battlefield Dominator. Attacks with two-handed weapons deal 25% increased damage with hits and ailments. Okay, so bleeding for two-handers. 10% reduced enemy stun threshold. Again, the Tidebreaker build. 15% increased area of effect if you've stunned an enemy with a two-handed melee weapon recently. Okay, guys. I just want to say, if that's the buff to two-handers, ain't nobody going to play two-handers. If the buff is, hey, you get 15% increased area of effect, which we said you already can get like 24% area of effect if when you're at max power charges for something else for comparable power charges, right? I forget which one that was. Power charges. Was it 3%? What was it? 3% area of effect? Ah, crap. I'm not going to be able to find it. It was up in the power charges section, right? Yeah, right here. Vast power. 3% increased area of effect per power charge. So if you're an assassin and you're rolling with 8 power charges, you're getting... I don't even have to say that you're rolling with 8 power charges. If you're an assassin and you're rolling with 5 power charges, which is getting 1 additional power charge to your 3 that you start out with and the 1 that you get off of your ascendancy tree, you're at 5. That is 15% area of effect. Okay? Then you come down here. Where are we at? 15% area of effect if you've stunned an enemy with two-handed melee weapon recently. I guess you could say that a build that's going to use the Battlefield Dominator is already going to ensure that it's always going to be stunning an enemy recently. So you're always going to have that 15%. But man, that feels so conditional. That particular one feels so niche. Again, we shouldn't compare one-to-one on these things. I'm doing something that I shouldn't in game design. Some things are meant to be stronger than other things. But that's yeah. Okay, Martial Mastery. 10% increased attack speed with two-handed melee weapons. Nice. 10% increased attack speed if you have at least 600 strength. Nice. And 20 to strength. Okay, cool. Sure-footed Striker. 40% increased critical strike chance with two-handed melee weapons. 8% chance to deal double damage if you've dealt a critical strike with a two-handed melee weapon recently. Give that thing crit multi, and then I might play two-handed weapons. Graceful Execution. 5% increased attack speed with two-handed melee weapons. 15% increased accuracy rating with two-handed melee weapons. 25% increased critical strike chance with two-handed melee weapons. And 15 to flat dexterity. Why on earth would I play a two-hander? Why would I play a two-hander? It makes no sense for me to play a two-hander. We just read those wand nodes. Why the heck would I play a two-hander? Somebody convince me. Because thematically I want to use a two-hander? Okay, sure. Thematically. You got me. In-game wise, I don't say... I guess if I'm doing a Tidebreaker build, I have to, because Tidebreaker is a two-handed weapon. Brutal Infamy. 40% increased damage with hits and ailments against unique enemies. Go away. Go away. Fearsome Warrior. 8% increased area of effect. 25% chance to intimidate enemies for 4 seconds on melee kill. Go away. Go away. Go away, Fearsome Warrior. Look at this. Look at this. Why do I want this? You get a chance to get more multiplier, right? G3 Iron, you always say increased attack damage means, hey, enemies take increased as a more multiplier. That's really good. Yeah, you have a 25% chance Which, granted, that's a relatively high percentage chance. But why do that when you can just come down here and go, hey, you're taunted. And by the way, since you're taunted, you deal what? Less damage. And now, by the way, you take 20% increased damage, which is a better, more multiplier. If you want to build around intimidating enemies, Fearsome Warrior's not going to be the thing that you're doing. Maybe if it's like maybe if this is the only way to get to one of those really, really good melee nodes that we already talked about, one of the bigger nodes, then maybe people take it. Otherwise, this stuff all sucks. Two-handers suck. Unless it's a mirror tier weapon. Which, oh my goodness, shock, a mirror tier weapon of anything would be amazing. Like, oh my goodness, G3 Iron, what do you mean? I've got my mirror tier two-hander over here. Yeah, okay. If you want to throw mirror tier currency at anything, you can make it good. Good. Not relative to any points of comparison. Unless the point of comparison is what that build was prior to spending that amount of currency on it. All right, combat rhythm. Let's go to the dual wielding. 10% increase attack speed if you've hit with your main hand recently. 10% increase movement speed if you've hit with your offhand. All right, so let's just look at combat rhythm here for a second. So combat rhythm is giving you attack speed and movement speed for doing what? Normal stuff, like hitting stuff. Then you come up here and you're like, hey, you got a crit to get the double damage bonus. Or you got a stun to get the AoE bonus. Or, hey, you got to have at least 600 strength to get some attack speed bonus. Or, like, it's just a joke. It's just, maybe there's some secret two-hander build out there, and Chris Wilson is sitting in an office somewhere in New Zealand going, yes, excellent. They haven't discovered my secret two-hander build yet. But until that day comes, I mean, all the rest of us are just pleb POB warriors, and we haven't figured out that two-handers are the way to go in Path of Exile. But they're, man. Ugh. All right, hit and run. Attack skills deal 20% increased damage while dual wielding, 4% chance to dodge attack or spell hits if you've hit an enemy recently. So would you rather have 4% chance to dodge attack or spell hits if you've hit an enemy recently? Or would you rather have 10% increased attack speed if you have at least 600 strength? Iron, they're two different passives, they're two different builds. You can't compare them one to one. I get it. I get it. I'm sorry. I'll stop. I'll stop. I won't. I will. I will. I will stop. I will stop memeing about two-handers. I will stop. Not right now, but someday I will stop. Insatiable Killer. Attack skills deal 20% increased damage while dual wielding. 5% increased attack speed while dual wielding. 5% chance to gain a frenzy charge on kill while dual wielding. Why can't two-handers have frenzy charges? James says maybe they're coming out with a two-handed wand. Yeah, those are called stabs. Those are two-handers. And they also suck in comparison to all this. Oh, man. By the way, if you are new to the channel, if you're new to today's discussion, we are going over the 280 new notables that are coming out for the 3.10 Delirium upcoming league that releases on Friday, March 13th. And of course, if you're new to the channel, you can like, subscribe, and ding the bell. It's not above my head today. The notification is, I think it's over there. I think that's where it's at. But anyway, wherever it is that you can like, subscribe, and ding the bell, you can do that if you're enjoying our stream and enjoying our time together tonight. Or this morning, wherever it is that you are in the world. I'm certainly enjoying our time together. Mage Bane. Okay. 5% chance to block spell damage while dual wielding. Attack skills deal 20% increased damage while dual wielding. 20% chance to gain a power charge when you block. Again, like this is very conditional, right? This is very conditional. Hey, you have to be building block in order to get this bonus. Yeah, but the bonus is really good. You're getting a power charge. Like, that's a really good bonus. Charge generation is something that you generally have to dedicate skills to, big time passives and ascendancies, or it's really tough to get off of your gear. It's a really good node. And then, by the way, the requirement is block, and you get some bonus to block. Like, F in chat for two-handers. There's just no point of comparison. Martial Momentum. 8% increased attack speed while dual wielding, 16% increased accuracy rating while dual wielding, 32% increased damage if you've used a travel skill recently. Deadly Repartee. 5% chance to block attack damage while dual wielding. Attack skills deal 25% increased damage while dual wielding, 30% increased critical strike chance while dual wielding. Quick and Deadly. 60% increased main hand attack damage while wielding two different damage types. Two different weapon types, 30% increased offhand attack speed while wielding two different weapon types. Smite the Weak. 40% increased attack damage against maimed enemies. Attacks have 10% chance to maim on hit. That seems good. Seems pretty good. It's not OP, but it seems pretty good. Heavy Hitter. 30% increased attack damage, 10% reduced enemy stun threshold, 20% chance to double stun duration, 30% increased damage with ailments from attack skills. Okay, so this passive, it's got like the unarmed like guy punching, right? And it's already a better stun build passive than like some of the two-handed stun passives. Okay. Take a deep breath. Let it all out. And move on. Martial Prowess. 20% increased attack damage. 6% increased attack speed. 15% increased global accuracy rating. That's going to be needed for these unencumbered builds because you're losing a lot of gear slots. 20% increased damage with ailments from attack skills. So like a bleeding puncher. Become the monk. It's interesting. Calamitous. 10% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite. 30% increased elemental damage with attack skills. 15% increased effect of non-damaging ailments. What the heck? Why would I not use that on my bow build? First off, why is it the guy punching? Okay? It has nothing to do with melee. In fact, that particular passive notable is going to be used by bow builds way more than it's going to be used by any kind of unarmed build or melee build. Feel free to come back and drop a comment on this particular video if in a month we're into the league and it's like, oh no, the unarmed guys really wanted Calamitous. The theming on that image just looks way off. If I'm playing Tornado Shot or Ice Shot with Arrow Nova support, like, why wouldn't I want to do this? That's brilliant. For any bow user. For wand users. That's really good. Devastator. 20% increased attack damage. 20% increased damage with ailments from attack skills. Enemies killed by your attack hits have 15% chance to explode, dealing a 10th of their maximum life as physical damage. $3.10. The meta is explode everything. Right? So we play with explosive force, which give us wand hits, right? That can be attacks. Attacks could be wand hits, right? So everything that we hit has just got a 25% chance to explode. This one has got a 15% chance to deal a 10th of their maximum life. This one is 25%. Then that's before you get a explodey chest that explodes for physical, right? Is that 3%, I think, is what the explodey chest is? I don't know. What are you guys saying here? James says it would be great for a Deadeye Ice Shot Void Fletcher build. Eric says, seems like everybody gets explodey. Yeah. Jeff says, wands are attack hits. Yep. Deltran says, it is a cool theme to punch someone so hard they explode. I agree. You can go with the 5-finger death punch. Touch Me says, Ice Shot in 3.10 is super expensive, even just for the clearing potential. I don't know. The top end guys never care about expense, right? They always go out and get their build. So, yeah, that's interesting. All right, Fuel the Fight. 8% increased attack speed. 0.4% of attack damage leached as mana, and 20% increased damage while leeching. Nice. 0.8% drive the destruction. 8% of attack damage. Hey, this kind of sounds like certain people I know when they're driving. Drive the destruction. 0.8% of attack damage leached as life. 20% increased maximum total recovery per second from life leech. 20% increased total recovery per second from life leech. Feed the Fury. 0.4% of attack damage leached as life. 30% increased attack damage while leeching. 15% increased attack speed while leeching. Seal Mender. Skills supported by Unleash have 30% increased seal gain frequency. That's good. Conjured Wall. 25% increased spell damage. 6% chance to block spell damage if you've cast a spell recently. Doesn't this look like a magic card? Like a card from Magic the Gathering, by the way? This art looks really nice. I like this. I need to build an entire build just using these notables just because I like that art. Arcane Heroism. 30% increased effective Arcane Surge on you. 10% chance to gain Arcane Surge when you hit a unique enemy. What's the amount of Arcane Surge effect that we can get up to? It's at least something, right? Elemental ailment immunity would be nice. 10% increase. 10% increase. Up to 50%. So that's 60% with elemental ailment immunity with another 30%. So that's 60% at max mana spent. And then up to 90% with Arcane Heroism. So that's a 1/3 buff to what we presently have on Arcane on Arcane Surge right now. It's a 1/3 buff of what's available. It seems really good. That seems really good. Yeah, I think this is very informative. This is very informative. Okay, Practice Caster. 20% increased spell damage. 5% increased cast speed. 35% chance to avoid interruption from stuns while casting. That's just kind of lame. That's just kind of lame. All right, by the way, for those of you who are wondering why it is that I'm being so cheeky today, I am being cheeky today about what build it is that I'm going to be playing this league, not because I'm trying to be cheeky with you guys and tease you guys and make fun of you guys, etc., which maybe actually that is a little bit of what I'm doing. But on top of that, on top of just having a good time, I don't want to say, hey, this is going to be my league starter, and then tomorrow during patch notes completely change that. So I've got a couple of different ideas about what I'm going to do for league starter, but yeah, that's why I'm being cheeky tonight. Okay, Burden Projection. 30% increased spell damage. 8% chance to knock enemies back on hit with spell damage. Okay, get some knockback. Thaumophage. How do we say this? Where's my British auto text speaker? Thaumophage? Thaumophage?
Thaumophage.
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 Thaumophage. Okay, Thaumophage. 0.6% of spell damage leached as energy shield. 20% increased maximum total recovery per second from Energy Shield Leech, 10% chance to hinder enemies on hit with spells, nice, with 30% reduced movement speed. Nice. That seems nice. It's not build enabling, build defining, but it's nice. Okay, Essence Rush. 40% increased damage while leeching Energy Shield. 0.3% of spell damage leeched as Energy Shield. 5% increased attack and cast speed while leeching Energy Shield. Okay, nice. Sap Psyche. 20% increased spell damage. 30% increased mana regeneration rate. Regenerate 1% of Energy Shield per second if you've cursed an enemy recently. If that was regenerate 1% of Energy Shield per second for each enemy you've cursed recently, up to like 10, then it would be broken and it'd be like, okay, I'm playing around that. 1%? Just every 4 seconds? Granted, if you're playing Bane, you're just always cursing stuff anyway, right? But just having a flat 1% ES regen per second doesn't sound like something. It sounds like something that's nice. It doesn't sound like something that's demanded. Okay. Sadist. 15% increased elemental damage if you've chilled an enemy recently. 20% increased elemental damage if you've ignited an enemy recently. 25% increased elemental damage if you shocked an enemy recently. Okay, so here's the thing. Increases in damage are pretty easy to come by. So at first, looking at this, it's like, oh, this is cool. Like, you really want to shock somebody. But unless you're getting a whole bunch of these, it's not that much damage. It really isn't, right? What was it? 30%? Or this is just flat 20% increase to spell damage. And this is 40% increase to spell damage, right? Increases to spell damage or increases to damage aren't that big a deal. Okay, Corrosive Elements. Oh, look, you just get 15% increased elemental damage over here. It's not unconditional. Okay, so 15% increased elemental damage. Cold hits, or cold skills, have a 25% chance to apply cold exposure on hit. Nice. Fire skills have a 25% chance to apply fire exposure on hit. Nice. And lightning skills have a 25% chance to apply lightning exposure on hit. All right, so you go Corrosive Elements and you go Inquisitor. You penetrate and expose, and all of the damage that you do is just in the gazillions because whatever it is that you're hitting ends up with like minus 30 to whatever resistance it was that they used to have. Sounds good. That sounds good. All right, Doriani's Lesson. 0.2% of elemental damage leached as life, 25% increased elemental damage. So there's a little bit of life leech if you're a spell user. Disorienting Display. 25% increased elemental damage, 10% chance to blind nearby enemies when you use an elemental skill. That's a nice defensive layer. Prismatic Heart, 10% to all elemental resistances, 30% increased elemental damage. Vivov says, it just sucks that Corrosive Elements doesn't work with Wave of Conviction or any other exposure. Yeah, you'd rather use a 25% exposure than a 10%. Sure. Sure. At any point in time, you'd rather have more than less, right? But if you don't want to invest in the skill in order to do that, it'd be interesting. Yeah, at least the way how this is worded, 0.2% of elemental damage leached as life. So elemental damage, you can do that off of spells. You can leech life again off of spells. It's not a ton, but it's there. Imagine if you get 10 of those. 2% of elemental damage. Wait, can I do math? I don't even know. I don't care. I don't care to know. Prismatic Heart. We did this one. Widespread Destruction. 10% increased area of effect. 20% increased elemental damage. Nice. Pretty generic. Master of Fire. Nearby enemies have fire exposure. So you don't have to reserve any of your mana to do a Blasphemy. You don't have to pick an Ascendancy. And you just get it. So pretty much all of the chieftain builds that are out there are going to want this. Right? All the covered in ash builds are going to want this. Where is it on the tree? All of the Avatar of Fire builds are going to want this. So this might not necessarily be the most OP out of all these passives that we talk about tonight, but it actually might end up being one of the more popular ones for players who are building conversion or doing fire damage, especially early on in a league. Smoking Remains. Kind of sounds like me at the end of a long day. 35% increased fire damage. 10% chance to create a smoke cloud on kill. I don't smoke, by the way. That's just me saying, oh, I'm dead at the end of a long day. A smoke cloud on kill. So that's nice, right? Because that gives you a bunch of evasion. I'm pretty sure that's what a smoke cloud does, right? Or does it blind? Does it reduce enemy accuracy? Is that what it does? Yeah, inflicts blind. Okay. So it reduces enemy accuracy. So that's nice. So you kill something in a pack and then there's a bunch of smoke clouds. Enemies around it are blinded. That's actually pretty nice thematically. That's well done. I should add that into a D&D campaign. That sounds good. Okay, Cremator. 30% increased fire damage. Ignited enemies you hit are destroyed on kill. Nice. So you don't have to worry about flipping corpse effects. Snowstorm. Gain 10% of lightning damage as extra cold damage against chilled enemies. That's interesting. That's interesting. Somebody will do something here. Hey, we got a shout out from Deltron Does Games. Deltron says, have to vanish, but wanted to tell you thank you for the knowledge and the entertainment. Keep being awesome. All right. Thanks so much, Deltron. Thanks for the tip today, man. Hope that wherever it is that you have to go, you remember that life is hardcore. You only get one shot at it, and then you got to go to standard. So make sure you stay safe out there. All right. Storm Drinker. Damage penetrates 8% of lightning resistance. 0.5% of lightning damage leached as energy shield. Oh, Patrick says Snowstorm plus Skitterbots. Yeah, that's a great call. All right, so we've got lightning damage leached as energy shield. Yeah, I feel like Spell Leech is back. I feel like they've nerfed it for a time, and they're giving us little tiny glimpses of ways that we can get some elemental damage off of spells or attacks as Leech. Just a little tiny bit. Maybe that's not intended, but I think that's where we're at. All right, Paralysis. 30% increased lightning damage. 10% chance to double stun duration. Lightning skills have 10% reduced enemy stun threshold. Okay, so if you want to build like a stunning build, that's something that you could do. Something you could do. Not something you have to do, but it's something you could do. Supercharge. Lightning damage with non-critical strikes is lucky. Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. Blasting says there's also a node that makes it so that way lightning damage inflicts chill. Oh, there we go. That's what I'm thinking of. That's quite interesting. So you could go Skitterbots. You could go with this other node. I'm sure there's other ways that we could convert it. Okay, so for those of you who don't remember what Lucky is, it's really good for lightning damage because lightning damage in the game has got the widest amount of variables for the damage that it can roll. It can roll the lowest. It can roll the highest amount of damage in the game when it's rolling. So the fact that it's lucky, it rolls the damage twice and it takes the better out of the two numbers. So that's really nice. That's going to add some consistency onto your lightning damage. Blanketed Snow says damage penetrates 10% cold resistance against chilled enemies. Nice. So again, another Skitterbots usage. Cold to the Core, 1% increased cold damage per 25 dexterity. 1% increased cold damage per 25 strength. 1% increased cold damage per 25 intelligence. Why would you not want to go that if you're already going like a dex stacker for damage and you're using Here's Ire? I get it. Hiri's Ire got nerfed. I get it. Bow builds all got nerfed. I get it. Monsters all got a ton of life. We just got a massive arsenal of passive nodes that we can dump into ways to mitigate the HP gains of 3.8 or 3.9. I feel like Speedy Boys are going to be running all over the place. I feel like this is definitely going to be a speed meta. Cold-Blooded Killer. 20% increase cold damage. Recover 2% of life on kill. Touch of Cruelty. Chaos skills have 10% chance to hinder enemies on hit. With 30% reduced movement speed, enemies hindered by you take 10% increased chaos damage. That's actually really nice. It's tough to get that Intimidate effect onto enemies with a chaos source, unless, of course, you're going to be a chaos using champion. Unwaveringly Evil. 30% increased chaos damage. Chaos skills ignore interruption from stuns. So if I'm standing there channeling Blight and I get stunned, the Blight is still going to continue. So that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. Unspeakable Gifts. Enemies you kill have 10% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody gets exploding. Everybody gets exploding. If I was Oprah, I would be saying, and I was at Grinding Gear Games headquarters, I'd be saying, you get to explode. You get to explode. You get to explode. You all get to explode. That's, I guess Oprah paid a visit to GGG headquarters this past patch cycle. Dark Ideation. 2% increased chaos damage per 100 maximum mana. Up to a maximum of 80%. What do we got to do to get up to 80%? What is that? 2% per 100. So it's what? 100 times 40? Is that what I'm thinking? We got to be at 4,000 mana? That's completely reasonable. That's not that tough for anybody to stack that much mana. Unholy Grace, or am I doing my math wrong? Am I so tired that I'm doing my math wrong? Unholy Grace, 30% increased chaos damage, 10% increased attack and cast speed. Wicked Paul, increased chaos damage, increased skill effect duration. Okay, the skill effect duration is actually pretty sick. That means that your Essence Drain and your Contagion last longer. It's pretty nice. Renewal. Guys, there's summoner stuff. Oh, guys. I'm so excited. Okay. Renewal. Minions regenerate 1% of life per second. Minions have 10% chance to deal double damage while they are on full life. I'm reserving comment so Chris Wilson doesn't do anything in between now and Friday. That's what I'm doing. I'm reserving comment. Raise and Pillage. Minions have 20% chance to ignite. Minions deal 20% increased damage against ignited enemies. Minions gain 6% of physical damage as extra fire damage. That's going to be a lot considering we've got 350 Spectres to try out. There's going to be some Spectres that we can scale up their ignite. There's just going to be some straight up Spectres who just like virtually automatically ignite. That's going to be interesting. Rotten Claws. Minions have 20% chance to impale on hit with attacks. I am reserving judgment. I'm not saying any... Chris? No, actually, I can say something. Chris, dear Chris, this is a terrible skill. And I think you've made your point that summoners are in a deserving of getting some bad passives. And so I can see your point. And I can see what you're trying to do here by giving us some bad passives. By giving us a really, really powerful mechanic like Impale. And implementing that with our minions. Totally get what you're trying to say here, Chris. No need to implement any more changes or nerfs to summoners or to minions because Rotten Claws is enough. We've gotten the message. It's no longer meta. Everyone go play bows and wands. Leave my minions alone. All right, Call to the Slaughter. Minions deal 15% increased damage. Minions created recently have 10% increased attack and cast speed. Minions created recently have 30% increased movement speed. That's just a straight buff to skeletons. The question, though, is the nerf to skeletons that's coming down in patch notes tomorrow going to be so much that this like barely makes up for it? That's going to be the question. Skeletal atrophy. Summoned skeletons have 10% chance to wither enemies for 2 seconds on hit. Summoned skeletons have 30% of chaos converted, or 30% of physical damage converted to chaos damage. That's interesting. Hulking corpses. Minions have 20% increased maximum life, 20% increased raised zombie size. Raised zombies have 5% chance to taunt enemies on hit. Oh. Okay, so again, are they going to hit zombies with like a minion zombie base life has been reduced by half? Then it's like, who cares about minion zombie stuff? All right, I'd like Durant says, I remember in your other video, one of the things you talked about that was coming was a node for summoners. Were they immune to damage for 4 seconds after summoning? Yep, we're going to get to that eventually, wherever it is. Hopefully we'll see it. Vicious Bite. Minions have 50% increased critical strike chance. Raised specters, raised zombies, and summoned skeletons have 50 to crit strike multi. Okay, so imagine how broken that's going to be with the new specters. Again, we have 350 new specters. Unless Chris Wilson personally takes a shotgun to the spell gem raised specter, there's going to be a couple of those 350 that are really good with some crit strike chance and some crit strike multi. There's going to be some of them. There's some that already exist that are really good for that. They're called, I don't know, any of the 10 different specters that you can already pick from. So this is really good news. I like Vicious Bite. I mean, I'm sorry, Chris. You didn't hear that. Don't hear what I'm not saying, Chris. It's terrible. You don't need to nerf anything tomorrow. Primordial Bond. 10% increased damage per summoned golem. Nice. 40% increased effective buffs granted by your golems. Golems have 25% increased maximum life. That increased buff effect, really, really good for Bone Golem, by the way. Really good. When you're using Bone Golem to augment your damage on all of your undead hordes, really good. Blow Black. In Ignites, you inflict, deal damage 15% faster. Fan the Flames. Ignites, you inflict, spread to other enemies within a radius of 15. So they're trying to bring Ignite builds back. Okay. Cooked Alive. I like the art on this one. 15% chance to ignite. Enemies ignited by you have -10 to fire resistance. Hey, this is me in the summer when I take my kids to the park. Cooked Alive. Burning Bright. 8% to fire damage over time. Multiplier, 20% increased fire damage. 8% increased area of effect. That's just a straight buff to Righteous Fire right there. That's what that is. Wrapped in Flames. Or Wrapped in Flame. 20% increased burning damage, plus 15% to fire damage over time multiplier while burning. Regenerate 1.5% of life per second while burning. So burn yourself with Righteous Fire, but then you just do a whole bunch of damage, right? Vivid Hues. 12% to damage over time multiplier for bleeding. 2% of attack damage leached as life against bleeding enemies. 20% increased total recovery per second from life leech. That's interesting. That's a lot going on for bleeding builds right there. Rend is 12% to damage over time multiplier for bleeding. 30% increased bleeding duration. That's really good. Disorienting Wounds, 25% increased damage with bleeding. 25% chance to blind with hits with bleeding against bleeding enemies. Nice. Compounded Injury. I feel like, by the way, blind has been a thing that they're trying to push. I feel like blind and smoke clouds have come up a lot. How many times has blind come up? 8 times? Then again, that might only be 4 times because every time they mention it, they're explaining it. I like that they're doing that, by the way. Bex, if you're listening, I like that you guys put in parentheses what this stuff does. Because I'm looking up some of the stuff over on the wiki, but a lot of the stuff it's nice to have right here. Compound Injury. 50% increased damage with bleeding you inflict on maimed enemies. That's a decent amount of damage. It's not massive, but it's decent. 8% increased cast speed on septic spells. Spell skills have 10% to skill damage over time multiplier for poison. 20% chance to poison on hit with spell damage. Okay, so what you're doing with septic spells is you're literally taking your wand and you're dipping it into a sewer tank, and then you're casting your spells, and that's what's giving you more damage over time multiplier. Oh, and chance to poison. It's nice. Low tolerance. 8% to damage over time multiplier for poisons. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I read that as poisons. It's two different stats. 8% damage to 8% to damage over time multiplier for poison. It is not poisons. The poisons you inflict. Poisons you inflict on non-poison enemies deal 300% increased damage. That's a lot. Granted, it's only your first poison, right? But that's a lot. Steady Torment. Increased poison duration. Increased bleeding duration. 10% to damage over time multiplier for bleeding you inflict on poisoned enemies. 10% to damage over time multiplier for poison you inflict on bleeding enemies. What? So we've got like this weird bleeding poison hybrid. Here's the problem with that. Isn't bleed... Yeah, bleeding is over here on the bottom left, and isn't poison in the top right? Ah, there's some over here. That's going to be a funky looking tree. Whoever builds around Steady Torment, that's going to be a funky looking tree. Eternal Suffering. 5 to chaos damage over time multiplier. Chaos skills have 30% increased skill effect duration. Very nice. Again, all of you ED Contagion boys, you're going to love that. Eldritch Inspiration. 8% to chaos damage over time multiplier. 8% increased maximum mana. 20% maximum or 20% mana regeneration rate. Nice. Wasting. So if you want to play MOM as a chaos build, you can do that. Nice. Wasting Affliction. 20% increased damage with ailments. Damaging ailments deal damage 10% faster. Okay, so poison, bleed. Hemorrhage. Plus 18% to damage over time multiplier for ailments from critical strikes. That's a lot. 40% increased critical strike multiplier. Okay, so that's good for bleed builds. Flow of Life. 24% increased damage over time. 4% increased maximum life. Regenerate 0.6% of life per second. Nice. Exposure Therapy. 10% to damage over time multiplier. 30% chaos resistance over time against damage over time. That's pretty nice. It's not just straight up chaos resistance, but that's nice. Brush with Death. 10% to damage over time multiplier. Recover 1% of life on kill. Recover 1% of energy shield on kill. Nice. Vile Reinvigoration. Sounds like me after I've had my coffee. 24% increased damage over time. 6% increased maximum energy shield. Regenerate 2% of energy shield per second if you've killed an enemy recently. That's a lot. That's a lot going on right there. You guys should be looking at Vile Regeneration, yo. That's a lot going on right there. Yeah, that's a good amount of damage over time as well. Okay. Granted, it's only an increase. It's not a multiplier, but that's a lot going on one node. All right. Circling Oblivion. 20% increased damage over time. 20% increased duration of ailments on enemies. 15% increased skill effect duration. Nice. All right. Brood for Potency. Increased damage over time. Increased flask charges gained. Increased life and mana recovery from flask. I'd rather take the other ones. James says you could do ED with Archmage gems, so the more mana you have and you put in it, the more damage. James, the problem with that is that the ED damage that scales off of spell damage, which is what Archmage scales off of, is just the hit. It's just the hit. So your damage over time isn't going to scale with the Archmage stuff. So be aware of that. Astonishing Affliction. My apologies. Sounds like what I've got right now. An Astonishing Affliction. 20% increased duration of elemental ailments on enemies. 20% increased damage with hits and ailments against enemies afflicted by ailments. 20% increased effect of non-damaging ailments. Yeah, non-damaging ailments. They're really trying to push these. Cold conduction. Enemies chilled by your hits are shocked. Enemies shocked by your hits are chilled. Okay, so there's the one that we were looking for when we were looking earlier. Like, hey, what's this chilled synergy with lightning damage? Cold conduction is it. Inspired oppression. 20% increased elemental damage. 30% increased mana regeneration rate if you have frozen an enemy recently. 30% increased mana regeneration rate if you have shocked an enemy recently. 10% increased effect of non-damaging ailments. That's pretty good. Oh, chilling presence. Nearby enemies are chilled. Dude. Why worry about this stuff? Just do this. Hey, if you're close to me, you're chilled. Deal with it. That sounds quite good. All right. Deep Chill says 10% to cold damage over time multiplier, 30% increased effective chill. Yeah, that's good. Man, there's going to be a lot of chill builds out there right now. A lot of just chill, calm, really like ASMR friendly. Hello, I'm G3 Iron. This is the Blast Freeze passive. And if you take Deep Chill, along with the Chilling Presence passive, then you'll really enjoy being chilled asleep. Okay, that was enough ASMR. That was my attempt. All right, Blast Freeze. Imagine if Mrs. Draconis walked into the room while I'm like whispering into the microphone. What is she going to think? I don't know. It's a good question. We should test it and find out. Blast Freeze. 20% increased cold damage. Freezes you inflict spread to other enemies within a radius of 12. That's really good. That's really good because you want all of those chain effects from freezing. That's good. Thunderstruck. 20% increased lightning damage. Your critical strikes knock back shocked enemies. 30% critical strike chance. Storm Rider. All right, 10% chance to gain a power charge when you shock a chilled enemy. 25% increased cold damage with hits against shocked enemies. 25% increased lightning damage with hits against chilled enemies. Okay. Overshock. 30% increased lightning damage. Your shocks can increase damage taken by up to a maximum of 60%. Nice. 30% increased effective shock. That's really good. That's worth an ascendancy point, yo. Hey, welcome, Brian. Way to get out of class. Way to skip out of class and come learn about PoE, the real class. Come work on your PhD. The PhD of PoE. That's what we're all working on. Evil Eye. Enemies you curse take 5% increased damage. Nice. Remember, enemies take increased damage as a more multiplier. 5% chance to dodge attack hits from cursed enemies. Nice. Okay, so kind of like a blind effect, a mini blind effect. Whispers of Death. 5% increased effect of your curses. 20% increased damage if you've killed a cursed enemy recently. Forbidden Words. 25% increased area of effect of curse skills. 5% increased effect of your curses. Curse skills have 5% reduced mana reservation. That's good. Dark Discourse. 10% increased effect of your curses. Enemies you curse are hindered with 15% reduced movement rate. Regenerate 1% of energy shield per second if you've killed an enemy recently. William says, is this the Glacial Hammer League? Yeah. Is this the Glacial Hammer League? That's a good question. There's enough cold and chilled stuff. Victim Maker. Curse skills have 50% increased skill effect duration, 25% increased damage with hits and ailments against cursed enemies. Huh. Yeah, this is interesting. Master of Fear. Oh, this is even more interesting. And by interesting, I mean ridiculous. Enemies you curse are intimidated. Enemies you curse are unnerved. That's just 10%. 10% more multiplier across the board. Regardless of whatever build it is that you're playing, that's just good. Wish for Death. You have Culling Strike against cursed enemies. Oh, look. That's nice. You don't need to use Culling Strike support anymore. Curse skills have 20% increased skill effect duration. Yeah, that's good. The Curse Bot boys all got real happy there. Heraldry. 20% increased effect of Herald buffs on you. 10% reduced mana reservation of Herald skills. That's good. Endbringer. 25% increased damage for each Herald affecting you. Yeah, triple Herald Elementalist. It's here. Cult Leader. Minions deal 35% increased damage while you are affected by a Herald. Herald of Purity. Herald of Agony. Hello? I mean, it's not build enabling. It's 35% increased damage, but it's nice. Empowered Envoy. Herald skills deal 40% increased damage. 20% increased effect of Herald buffs on you. Yeah. Yeah, this is really good. Dark Messenger. Herald skills have 25% increased area of effect. Herald skills deal 20% increased damage. Really good. Agent of Destruction. 10% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite while affected by a Herald. Auto Bombers Rejoice. 25% increased elemental damage while affected by a Herald. Yeah, elemental bombers, man. Auto Bombers just running around, blowing everything up, chaining maps. Lasting Impression. 30% increased damage over time while affected by a Herald. Herald skills deal 50% increased damage over time. Self-Fulfilling Prophecy. Plus 1% to critical strike chance of Herald skills. That's really good because it's tough to come by. 25% chance to critical strike multiplier if you've dealt a critical strike with a Herald recently, which of course, like every hit you're going to have is going to be a crit. Okay. So I got to just say this for just a moment, just to take a time out. Remember how I said the other day, some of you will remember, some of you won't because you're new to the channel, and that's fine. Welcome. So the other day I said GGG really likes to give us compliment sandwiches. So one of the things that they like to do is they like to say, hey, here's a good thing, and hey, here we're nerfing something, and then hey, here's a good thing, right? So that happens a lot. It happens a lot in game design. It happens a lot in life. It happens a lot in business. It happens a lot in relationships. It's a really good approach to softening the blow of a potentially unwelcome message, right? So let's take your favorite build. Whatever your favorite build is, let's say it's just going to get cut in half tomorrow during patch notes. One of the ways that they can make you feel a little bit better about that, which is what I'm expecting, by the way, to all of my favorite builds, because I love summoner builds and I'm expecting they all get nerfed. But that's okay. We all knew that was happening when quality of life and announcements were made that a lot of changes were coming and buffs to summoners. So those of us who are true summoner hipsters and have been playing all along know that the changes are coming, the nerfs are coming, and we're waiting for it, we're expecting it. We're kind of like fearful of it, but we're also like, yeah, it's coming, we'll figure out a way to still play with it. So put yourself in that position. Imagine that tomorrow you're going to get patch notes, we're all going to read them together, it's going to be great, we're going to have fun. But imagine in that scenario how angry and upset, maybe frustrated you would be with the gaming company that said your favorite build is going to be less fun this upcoming league, less powerful, and it's going to be tougher to get to that same level of power of whatever that new level of top-end power is going to be. In order to soften that blow, they're giving us all of this stuff, which is just power creep. It's just making us better. And we can't allocate all of this stuff because it's all balanced around the reality that we've all got, what, 123 passives if we push to level 100, right? So while some of these are going to be absolutely ridiculous and absolutely worth going for, I do just want to reiterate and give you guys my 2 cents that tomorrow during patch notes, we're all going to get smacked. Maybe not all of us. Many of us are going to get smacked. And maybe not many of us, maybe just us summoner players are going to get smacked. But I'm reminding us that tonight is our cake and tomorrow is our vegetables. Okay, that's a way to say it. All right, Invigorating Portents. Minions deal 20% increased damage while you are affected by a Herald. Minions have 10% increased movement speed for each Herald affecting you. That's nice. Pure Agony. +1 to maximum number of Sentinels of Purity. That's kind of nice. +5 to maximum Virulence. That's kind of nice. Minions deal 20% increased damage while you are affected by a Herald. So basically, is there an archetype here that they've just laid out for us that even dummies like me can be like, okay, do you want us to play Herald of Agony in conjunction with Herald of Purity? Is this what you want us to do? Because this is what we're going to do. Disciples. 1% additional physical damage reduction per summoned Sentinel of Purity. You lose Virulence 30% slower. Minions deal 20% increased damage while you are affected by a Herald. That's pretty good. Maybe I'll go with the Juggernaut, Herald of Agony, Herald of Purity build. Maybe. That seems pretty good. Dread March. Minions have 10% increased life, 10% increased move speed, 10% additional physical damage reduction, and 10% chaos resistance. So just a bunch of stats for minions. Blessed Rebirth. Minions have 20% increased life. Minions created recently cannot be damaged. Hey, who was it in chat that said, hey, Iron, wasn't there a notable that said minions created recently cannot be damaged? There you go. Blessed Rebirth. What can you do with a build where your minions cannot be damaged? There's going to be some things that we can do with that. I'm not going to tell Chris Wilson. I don't want Chris Wilson to know about the things that we can do with it, but we'll see. We'll see what the patch notes say tomorrow when we eat our vegetables. I'm enjoying the cake so far. All right, life from death. Minions have 15% increased maximum life. Regenerate 2% of life per second if a minion has died recently. Minions recover 4% of life on minion death. Feasting Fiends. Minions have 10% increased maximum life, 10% increased damage, and leech 0.4% of damage as life. Nice. Bodyguards. Minions have 10% increased maximum life. Minions have chance to knock enemies back on hit with attacks. That's actually obnoxious. I don't want that one. Go away. Follow through. Projectiles deal 15% increased damage for each remaining chain. That's really good. I'll just say, Magma Orb. There are some Magma Orb builds out there that y'all should check out. I know Magma Orb is like a meme from, Act 1. But that sounds like a Magma Orb passive if I've ever heard of one. Because you can play that in one of two ways, right? You can either have a bunch of chains and you just have it deal more damage per each chain it comes out. Or you can just have it be like, hey, I'm right on top of the thing, and I would normally do a whole bunch of chains. But because this is a boss, I just want to sit here and just keep pummeling it with Magma Orbs. So that's interesting. It would take a lot of chains to actually make that a good amount of damage, though. Like if you had 7 chains, that's 105 increased damage. But remember, it's only increased. So, all right, Streamlined. 30% increased projectile speed, 20% increased projectile damage. These definitely seem less build enabling. They're just stats. Shrieking Bolts. 35% increased projectile damage. 10% chance to taunt enemies on projectile hit. Eye to Eye, 25% increased projectile damage, 35% increased projectile damage with hits against enemies. Repeater. Repeater says 30% increased projectile damage, 8% increased attack and cast speed. Aerodynamics. Projectiles pierce an additional target. There we go. There's some much needed mechanics in all these stats. 20% increased projectile speed, 10% increased projectile damage. Chip Away. Some brand stuff. We haven't seen brand stuff since brands came out. I literally don't think brands have been changed since they came out. Am I wrong on that? What's the change log on brands? 3.5. Introduced to the game. Yeah. When were they changed? Wasn't Armageddon brand changed a little bit? And Storm brand was nerfed a little bit. 3.6? Yeah, it was 3.6 that it was nerfed a little bit. So they came out in Betrayal, and then they were nerfed in Synthesis. All right, Chip Away. 25% increased brand activation frequency if you haven't used a brand skill recently. 20% increased brand attachment range. That's pretty nice. Seeker Runes. 25% increased damage with brand skills. Unattached brands gain 20% increased brand attachment range per second. That's really good. Remarkable. You can cast an additional brand. Very nice. 12% increased cast speed with brand skills. Nice. Brand loyalty. This was one that was teased, I think, earlier today. Enemies take 5% increased damage for each of your brands attached to them, 20% increased brand attachment range. So that's really good. So this is the max number of brands that we can get to right now. What is it? 4 off of the tree? What is it? An additional? Okay, so there's 2 on the tree. Oh no, there's 3 explosive runes. Oh no, there's 4 runesmith. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Would this webpage, would this have told me just the max? Yeah, it's 3 here plus 4. So depending on how many times you get remarkable, if you get remarkable just once, you're looking at 8 brands. So at 8 brands, that is a 40% increased damage that enemies take. At max. Are brands the new mines? I mean, brands have kind of always been a really strong league starter. But that's interesting. I also feel like a lot of the not only did GGG pull a lot of their inspiration for these passives off of ascendancies, but I feel like they're going back to an earlier time in Path of Exile where basically the game was a bit more open in what you selected, like prior to ascendancies, because there were no ascendancies, right? There was no way to pigeonhole your build into a particular ascendancy, with that ascendancy being the best. And so I feel like a lot of these notables and jewels that are being added to the game, certainly some of them will be chased, certainly some of them will be rarer than others, but I feel like a lot of this is going back to an earlier time in PoE's history when they really went out of their way to make sure that you could build whatever it is that you wanted to build. And you weren't necessarily confined to a particular ascendancy. For instance, with brands, you could say, well, the reason why you play a Hierophant, like the reason why you should play a Hierophant is because you get all of these bonuses here for playing brands, but you can do that on another ascendancy. Yes, you're losing out on the bonuses of the Hierophant that they offer, particularly for this ascendancy, but you're not locked into it, you know? And I think for a lot of players, I feel like for a lot of players, that is a scary thing because they don't know how to build something unless they're just told how to build it. And they're told, yes, this is better than this. A is better than B, therefore go with A. So for a lot of players, yeah, I feel like that's a scary thing. But for a lot of other players, that's a very, very excitable thing. So, yeah. All right, so this is casting an additional brand. So this is another one. So we were just saying up to 8. Now we can go up to 9. That's pretty nice. Set and forget. 25% increased trap damage. 12% increased area of effect. 25% reduced trap duration. 40% increased trap trigger area of effect. Okay, interesting. So some trap stuff. Expert Sabotage. 30% increased mine damage. Can have up to 2 additional remote mines placed at a time. Mines have 20% increased detonation speed. Nice. Guerrilla Tactics. Increased mine damage, increased trap damage, increased trap throwing speed, increased mine throwing speed, increased movement speed if you've thrown a trap or mine recently. Interesting. So lab runners are going to use that for when they're running through the lab, right? With their mine, with their Speedy Boy mine. Expendability, 10% chance to throw up 1 additional trap or mine. That's interesting. Arcane Pyrotechnics. 20% increase trap damage, mine damage, gain Arcane Surge when your mine is detonated targeting an enemy. Nice. Gain Arcane Surge for the same thing when your trap is triggered. Surprise Sabotage. 15 to crit strike multi with traps and mines, and pen with traps and mines. Careful handling, increased trap damage, increased mine damage, increased life, increased mana. Peak vigor. So this would have been me during the 3.8 announcement cycle when they said that summoners were getting a buff. I was in peak vigor. 8% increased maximum life, 30% recovery from Flask. Fettle, flat 20 to maximum life, 10% increased life. That's a big node. That's a really big node. Okay, Scion Life Wheel is like what everybody compares everything to. This is 14% life with 20 flat. And it's on a part of the tree that you just can't guarantee you're going to get to, right? Like, not every build has got this accessible to them. This is a big, big deal. Could we actually see life builds surpass ES builds this league? If they're going to give us this stuff and they're not going to give us like a whole bunch of extra ES stuff, and if a lot of the ES strength stacking stuff gets nerfed, I don't know. This is interesting. Feast of Flesh. 8% increased maximum life. 0.4% of attack damage leached as life. 10 life gain for each enemy hit by your attacks. Sublime Sensation. Increased maximum energy shield. Increased maximum life. Okay, so that's really nice. So you put an energy from within right there, and that's good. Surging Vitality. 8% increased maximum life. Regenerate 0.5% of life per second. Every 5 seconds, regenerate 10% of life over 1 second. Nice. Peace Amidst Chaos. 8% increased maximum life. 2% additional physical damage reduction while stationary. Regenerate 2% of life while stationary. Okay, so get a jewel node that's got Peace Amidst Chaos leading up to the massive node that gives you a whole bunch of boosts for being stationary, right? It's pretty nice. Adrenaline, 6% increased maximum life, 15% increased maximum total recovery per second from life leech, 6% increased attack speed while leeching. James says it will make gearing easy or hard depending, since there are going to be so many build possibilities. Yes and no, James. I would argue that there are always a ton of builds to play in Path of Exile. I would argue that influencers now more than ever on YouTube, on Twitch, on Reddit, wherever it is that people are popular and thousands of people are watching other people play a specific build, I would argue that there's always been a ton of builds, but players naturally gravitate towards what they see other people playing and if it looks fun. Blasting Mouse says, keep in mind the life nodes are only on the small jewel clusters. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But they're nonetheless really good. So if you want to dedicate a whole bunch of yourself to essentially getting those small clusters out, yeah, it's a lot of passive points, but it's a lot of life. Mindfulness. Oh wait, did I miss this? Wall of Muscle. 6% increased life and 5% increased strength. Yeah, nice. Mindfulness. 15% increased maximum mana, 80% increased mana regeneration rate while stationary. Liquid Inspiration. 15% increased maximum mana, 30% increased mana recovery from flasks, 5% increased mana recovery rate during effect of any flask. So MOM is smiling right now. That's really good for MOM. Openness, plus 30 to maximum mana, plus 20% increased maximum mana. Daring Ideas, 18% increased maximum mana, 0.4% of attack damage leached as mana. Clarity of Purpose, 15% increased maximum mana, 30% increased mana regeneration rate. Scintillating Idea, 20% increased maximum mana, damage penetrates 5% of lightning resistance. Holistic Health. Go to your local holistic health store. 8% increased maximum life, 10% increased maximum mana. Nice. So MOM-based life builds will love that. Who doesn't play a life-based build when they're playing mana? MOM. Genius. That's the joke there in case you guys missed it. Genius. 8% increased maximum mana, 5% increased intelligence. Nice. Improviser. 6% increased attack speed, 10% increased maximum mana, 3 mana gain for each enemy hit. Stubborn Student. 20% increased armor, 15% increased maximum mana, 4% additional physical damage reduction. Nice. Savor the moment. 10% increased energy shield. Like it. Regenerate 3% of energy shield per second while stationary. Love it. Energy from naught. 100 to maximum energy shield. Okay, so remember what I said about how maybe we'll see some life builds overtake ES builds? Never mind. Will Shaper. Gain 5% of maximum mana as maximum energy shield. Nice. That's on top of, gaining 18% of it through your Clarity Watcher's Eye. Hopefully Clarity Watcher's Eye doesn't get nerfed. I didn't say anything about that. Chris Wilson, if you're listening, you're not listening right now. Dude, shoo. Go away. Spring Back. 6% increased maximum energy shield. 10% faster start of energy shield recharge. 15% increased energy shield recharge rate. Conservation of Energy. 8% increased maximum energy shield. 0.3% of spell damage leeches energy shield. 20% increased maximum total recovery per second from energy shield leech. Dang. There's a lot of these nodes, man. Like, there's just a lot of nodes. 280 nodes. Shifty says it's 100 to max. Just 100, not stacking with modifiers. Like, Shifty, that's the point, dude. That's flat. That's flat that you're then going to stack on top of all of these other increases. Like, think about the difference in your chess piece. I'll just say this, Shifty. Think about this and the difference between a chess piece that's got 600 energy shield versus 700. It matters, right? It really matters. It's really, really good. Just getting flat, that much flat of anything, you can scale that up. Heart of Iron. Hey, look, it's my heart. They included my heart in the game. That's so nice of them. Gain 10% of maximum life as extra armor. Yeah, that sounds like something I would like. I approve of that name. Prismatic Carapace. 30% increased armor, plus 1 to maximum all elemental resistances. Steel Skin. Soul of Steel. Oh! When is GGG going to learn that whenever there is the availability to bump up our maximum elemental resistances, we're all going to take that? We're all going to take that. That's good. Shifty says, if you have 10k energy shield, then 100 isn't much, though. Shifty, you're not understanding the way how reductions are working, my man. Maybe we're just tired, right? It's late in the day, at least for me here in the US. But you're getting 10k ES precisely because you're stacking up a whole bunch of flat ES that's then being multiplied. So there you go. Maybe chat can help sort you out or explain it in a better way than I can. But yeah, that's pretty good. Militarism, 30% increased armor, 8% increased maximum life. Okay, so basically I'm going to take all of these nodes and make a Vol Molten Shell Iron build. Hi guys, I'm G3 Iron, and I'm playing Vol Molten Shell the entirety of the league. Second skin, 3% chance to block spell damage, 30% increased armor, 3% chance to block attack damage. Dragon Hunter, 30% increased armor, 20 to fire resistance, 5% additional physical damage reduction. It's really good. Enduring Composure, 30% increased armor, gain an endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently. Prismatic Dance, 30% increased evasion rating, plus 1 to all maximum elemental resistances. Natural Vigor, 30% increased evasion rating, 8% life. Untouchable, increased evasion rating, chance to dodge, attacks, chance to dodge spells. That's good. Shifting Shadows, increased evasion, flat dex, 10% chance to blind enemies on hit. Readiness, 4% chance to evade attack hits if you haven't been hit recently. Nice. Confident Combatant. 1% increased damage per 1% chance to block attack damage. Flexible Sentry. I feel like we've already read these, but we haven't. It's just the same icon. 3% chance to block spell damage. 25% chance to avoid elemental ailments. I don't really like that because so many different ascendancies now have got abilities to avoid elemental ailments. It's kind of lame. Vicious Guard. 0.4% of attack damage leeches life. Regenerate 1.5% of life per second. 4% chance to block attack damage. Mystical Ward. 4% chance to block spell damage. Regenerate 1.5% of energy shield per second. That's good. And it's got spell leech. 20 to maximum life. 20% chance to gain an endurance charge when you block. And a chance to block attack damage. Nice. Mage Hunter. 4% chance to block spell damage. 20% increased spell damage. 20% chance to gain a power charge when you block. Nice. Riot Queller. 4% chance to block attack damage. Enemies taunted by you take 6% increased damage. That's pretty nice. That's really nice for champion. That's just additional damage for stuff you already want to do. One with the shield. Recover 50 life when you block. 50% increased defenses from equipped shield. 5% chance to block attack damage when holding a shield. By the way, I think I said this earlier on Discord, and we did get confirmation of this. Increased defenses from equipped shield does not impact spectral shield throw. Just FYI. That was something that I had stated earlier today or yesterday or the day before. They all run together now. And that's not the way how it works. Okay. Aerialist. 3% chance to dodge attack hits. 3% chance to dodge spell hits. And 5% increased dex. Elegant Form. Chance to avoid elemental ailments and then dodge. Darting movements. Increased movement and chance to dodge attack and spell hits while moving. Right there. There you go. There's phase acro. Every single player who's going to take acro and phase acro wants darting movements. Every single player. No witnesses. 10% chance to gain elusive on kill and 25% increased elusive effect. Nice. Molten One's Mark. +2 to maximum fire resistance. Regenerate 1% of life per second. Hey, Righteous Fire Boys. There we go. Molten One's Mark. That's where we're looking. All right. Fire Attunement. 40% reduced ignite duration on you. 50% reduced extra damage taken from critical strikes while ignited. So I want to be ignited, but ignite duration is worse. Okay. Makes sense. It's a little bit of that give and take. Pure Might. 40% increased stun and block recovery. Purity of Fire has 30% reduced mana reservation. 20 to strength. That's really good for Righteous Fire. That's really good because that's on top of if you're already putting it in your, what is it, Prism? Is it called Prism Guardian? Yeah, you put it in here. It's got Blood Magic. Socketed Gems have 25% reduced mana reservation. Does this get added on top of that? That'd be another 30%? Seems good. That seems good. I don't know. It's been a few leagues since I played Righteous Fire. Maybe I need to go back and play it. All right. Blacksmith. 25% increased armor. More buffs to Vol Molten Shell. It's got to be getting nerfed, right? Vol Molten Shell tomorrow has to be getting nerfed. 20 to fire resistance. 0.4% of fire damage leeches life. By the way, Spell Leech is back, everybody. If we were all wondering it. It's back. You can leech it as ES. You can leech it as life. You can leech it elementally. It's back. Non-flammable. Fire resistance, chance to avoid being ignited, and chance to avoid fire damage from hits. Winter Prowler. Maximum cold resistance and move speed. That's good. Hibernator. Reduced freeze duration on you. 15% additional physical damage reduction while frozen. Okay. Pure Guile. Purity of Ice has 30% reduced mana reservation. 5% chance to blind enemies on hit. That's really good for supports, right? If you're running all of the different purities. So it makes it easier to fit in all of the various purities that you need to for all your auras. And then you're still actually actively playing and you got a chance to blind enemies on hit. That's nice. Alchemist. Increase attack speed, cast speed, cold resistance, and increased life recovery from flasks. Antifreeze. Cold resistance, chance to avoid being frozen, 6% chance to avoid cold damage from hit. Wizardry, 8% increased maximum mana and 2% to maximum lightning resistance. Nice. Ninjano the Wise says, now does it work with Vol and Purity of Fire? That's a good question. That's a good question. I believe the answer is generally yes, because both of the skills get worked into the same item. So thanks so much for the tip, Ninjano, for tipping $2, and thanks so much for the question. But I believe they both work, because when they redid the way how Vol skills worked, and we had a whole video on that, working over that a couple of years ago, when they announced the Vol skill rework, both skills are inherited in the same gem. And so whatever is working for that main skill in terms of reservations works for a corrupted version of the same gem. So it should work. It's not necessarily going to reduce the cost, the soul requirement, etc. of casting the Vol skill, but it is going to work for when you're actually using a Vol skill for its basic skill to reserve it. Okay, Capacitor, 12% increased movement speed while shocked, 40% reduced effective shock on you. Okay. There's a couple of easy ways to get yourself shocked, so that's nice. Pure Aptitude, regenerate 1% of energy shield per second. Purity of Lightning has 30% reduced mana reservation, plus 20 to intelligence. Sage says 20% increased mana regeneration rate, 20% to lightning resistance, regenerate 1.5% of life per second. Insulated says 20 to lightning resistance, 40% chance to avoid being shocked, 6% chance to avoid lightning damage from hits. Born of Chaos says plus 3% to maximum chaos resistance. That's good. Anti-Venom, flat chaos resistance and unaffected by poison. That's really good. Rot resistance. You get flat chaos resistance. You regenerate a flat amount of life. You regenerate flat energy shield. And you regenerate flat mana. That's really good. Blessed. Okay, 6% increase maximum life. 10% increase maximum mana. And flat chaos resistance. Student of Decay. Increased damage over time. And chaos resistance. All right. And there's all, 280 plus notables for Cluster Jewels. Okay, so before I go to bed and give my voice a rest, I've got a couple of things to say here in summary. One, I definitely think we're getting a compliment sandwich. I think what we're getting here is a bunch of buffs today to get excited about. And then tomorrow, we're all going to get smacked, or many of us are going to get smacked, or some of us are going to get smacked. That's what patch notes are here for. So Monday is like, hey, look at all this nice, good stuff you're going to get. And Tuesday is going to be like, why were you looking at something nice? Bad. That's what it's going to be like. Okay? We're all going to get smacked tomorrow. So, hear me loudly and clearly. We're going to get smacked tomorrow. Don't be shocked when the nerfs come. Like, prepare yourself already for the hammer that Chris Wilson is wielding and is about to bring down upon us. Because it is coming down on us hard tomorrow. Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing, I really do feel like basically all of these nodes are pulling themselves from, like, in their theme, in their ethos, in their mechanics, from ascendancies. They looked at ascendancies and they said, if we were to give another 8 passive nodes to every ascendancy, what would that look like? And then they went on from there. So I like that. I like the way how they're doing that. I feel like more and more builds are going to be opening up that actually allow you to choose multiple different options for your ascendancy. That you're not going to feel as tied to playing an ascendancy because you can fill out your tree however you'd like to build. Okay. All that being said, in about, what is it going to be? About 9.5 hours from right now, we're going to have an extended discussion with like a couple dozen different suggestions on ways to narrow down your selection of a league starter build. So make sure you pay attention for that announcement if you're on our Discord. If you're not on our Discord, then of course all of that information to join our Discord is down below in the video description. And of course, if you'd like to support the channel, We love all of our supporters, all of our Patreon supporters, love all the support that you guys give us. It's one of the things that gives us the opportunity to actually upgrade our surroundings in our studio. Believe it or not, I'm surrounded by a bunch of cameras and lights and green screen equipment right now. And that's all made possible because of Patreon supporters who want to see the channel grow and who like what G3 does inside the Path of Exile community. So if you want more information about any of that, or you want to support us in any way, you can always make a one-time tip either through Super Chat or through PayPal. But if you'd like to be a regular Patreon supporter, we do give a little bit of perks, a couple of perks here and there, and we do some giveaways every once in a while to our Patreon supporters as well. So thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and I hope to see you and to catch up with you more tomorrow when we discuss how to narrow down your selection of a league starter. And of course, I hope that 3.10 Delirium is the league that a Mirror of Calandra drops for you.